Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are watching us from. Welcome back once again to the GLL Masters Spring. My name is Blue. Joining me here on the cast is Stokes, and we are just about ready to bring you the action for the European finals of our circuit here. Stokes, how you feeling today?
Man, I am feeling so very excited, John. So much action still to be had from Europe after those amazing semifinals that we saw earlier in the week. I'm just excited to get into it.
Surprising in a lot of respects, but we have plenty of time to talk about that in a few minutes here. First, let's take a look at our schedule and see what exactly is going to be going on over the next few days here as we continue to try and wrap things up as our Spring Masters here at the GLL is starting to come to a close. As you already saw, we had our Apex South, the beginning at least of it, playing just a little bit earlier today, a couple hours ago. In fact, we're now moving into the European portion of our broadcast, and away from that, we are also going to move into the North American part of that right after this also. So we should be seeing some NA action coming up a little bit later on today, and we'll run it all back, do the same exact thing tomorrow as well to finish up the action for all three of those regions. Obviously, as you can see here inside of Europe itself, we've got our game-to-game schedule where, just like when the two of us covered South America, and I'm sure for all the other regions as well that we've been covering these past few weeks, you're going to see 8 games played over the course of today and tomorrow, 16 games total across both days.
A little bit of a change up from what we saw inside of the semifinals, only having 6 matches, but having those 2 extra ones really so everyone can battle it out and get a good chance at getting all those kill points, everything else that we're concerned about when it comes into winning this. Then, just extending that, going to make it a little bit easier for some of these guys. Either way, though, let's talk about this prize pool, guys. $15,000 for the victor, rolling it right on down to $7,000 for second and $4,000 for third place, obviously trailing down to $2,500 and $1,500 for fourth and fifth.
Now, obviously going to be $30,000 total up for grabs here in Europe, so plenty of cash being spread around, $100,000 overall available across all of our global competitions. You can also see our point system there on the right side too. Obviously, just going to be 1 point per kill, and you can see the various spreads for the placements that are going to be put across the board right there. And that, I think, will take us into the discussion of our teams in a moment here as well. We can talk about some of the performances we have been seeing in the semifinals yesterday. Of course, Onset Gaskin doing a great job of covering some of that action, and you can now see the two out of the 2 groups that we had played yesterday and the day before that, the top 10 teams from each of those groups that have now made it through here into the top 20. Stokes, who's standing out for you on this list?
Oh man, there's quite a few teams, but I think that the one that is probably the funniest one has to be Third Impact in 18th place, because inside of their very first game, they actually ended up taking Fuse accidentally instead of Wraith, and they ended up winning. So he was actually, or Third Impact actually won with Fuse for the very first time inside of competitive Apex in anything that I could find, as well as what the commentators were talking about on that broadcast as well. So I think that says something pretty cool to notate as well. But besides that, from that group, underrated has to be at the top of the heap for me in 19th place, having the best KP out of all of their group at 18 for their very last match.
Yeah, really good stuff. Just talking about some of the other notable squads here as well that managed to push their way through. Trying to see here is actually one of the teams I had notes on, not on. Oh no, there we go. Solo Q Goats. Couldn't find them on our list there for a second. But just mentioning them, of course, that's Shiv's team for anybody who's here rooting for him today. Just barely, in fact, making it out of their group. They were in semifinal group 2, managing, of course, a little bit of a low placement. There are only 2 top 3 finishes over the course of the 12 games that were played in the semifinal. A little under 3 kill points coming in per map. And while this doesn't sound super impressive, the important thing to note specifically with Solo Q Goats is that this still sits them relatively even with some of the other teams in their semifinal groups, such as Ethics, the Yappers, and OSP. Those are the 6th to 9th place teams. And on top of that, when you look at their past performances over the past few months, we haven't seen them slowly start to work their way up. So although they just barely managed to squeak their way in here, I'm going to be curious to see if they can make slightly more of an impact inside of the finals, considering that there has been a bit of a path of improvement seeming to show up for this team as of late.
Yeah, there just seems to be so many solid squads coming into this. I mean, watching through the previous 2 broadcasts as well and just being able to break down a lot of what these people are bringing to the table, there's just so much action to be held today. And I mean, there's still just like a laundry list of things to talk about. I mean, we can talk about like Totem Esports, which are devised of some Frenchmen as well as an Italian, and they've been actually showing up in quite a few regards. They only got created about 3.5 months ago, but they've been having some pretty high finishes given the circumstances circumstances, right? At the first circuit for the ALGS winter circuits, they actually ended up finishing 4th place. It was their best finish, but for a team that's so young, they're showing some promise very early on in these stages.
Possibly the big surprise coming out of this bracket so far is the fact we were not able to see Navi make it through and into the finals here. They were knocked out in the semifinals, so that was one of your highest placing teams for the last ALGS event. Unfortunately, not able to make it here today, but we do have it in the form of some other squads here, most notably Alliance, who has been incredibly dominant inside of the region over the past few months, and possibly going back even further than that as well. If you just look at their Wikipedia page, it kind of speaks for itself. They have managed to make it through here in quite the dominant fashion, coming out, I believe, 2nd place in their semifinal group with some really consistent placements as well. 4 out of the 12 games, 33% of the matches they played, they managed to take the win in all of those and average a little under 5 kills per map as well. So they're on fire. And keep in mind, they're not even the best in their group. T-Rex, a bit of a surprise team there, managed to top it out in the semifinals. They only managed 3 wins, but slightly better stats overall, and allowed them to beat out Alliance by I think 7 or 8 points overall.
Yeah, and also they had a 19 kill game as well as a 17 kill game. I mean, come on, T-Rex. That is such an insane margin. But that's the thing about, Apex overall, is it's not about that flash in the pan play inside of the first match. It's about consistency throughout the entire day. And that's what we saw a lot inside of LATAM as well when you and I casted that, is that's truly what this is about. So we need to see that consistency like we saw from T-Rex, like we saw from Alliance. We need to see that from these other squads if they truly want a chance to try and win this.
We're going to have to see if they can do that. The first match, I know you guys are, you don't want to hear us sit here and talk. Cast to the start button. Unfortunately, someone forgot to set it to us. So we're waiting on someone else to hit it. It's stuck at that person's house right now. And it's,
do you see this? Do you see this? We're trying here. I'm clicking.
We're trying real hard to start the game, folks. But stick with us here for just a moment, of course. We are just waiting for a couple of more of those players to jump into the lobby, and then we should be good to start out with our very first map of the day here on World's Edge to get this final started and see who's going to be on the right path, at least at the beginning. As we all know, this is going to be a very long journey between today and tomorrow to see who our true champion inside of Europe is going to be. But I hope you'll be down to stick with it with us over the next, I would say 8 hours or so of Apex action while we play out all 16 of these games.
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff up ahead of us, guys. Remember, just keep watching that match timer up there because I'm telling you, it's going to go fast. That's something that John and I learned the last time that we did this. These matches just continue to roll. Just so much action to be had inside of Apex and how this goes with different team comps and how things break down. And overall, just especially with World's Edge being the map that we're using, I think it's made it to where things are quite action-packed, especially out open space, except for when that circle tends to push over towards Geyser, which we actually saw happen quite a few times throughout the semifinals, and it made for some really, really cool final circles.
It seems to be a common thing, actually. Geyser has been leading to some really good fights. We were covering South America about 2 to 3 weeks ago now. We had that be a pretty common trend of the circles ending up going that direction and leading to some pretty chaotic fights due to the good kind of spread of cover there. It gives a lot of teams great opportunities to stay in it. Even going past the top 10, we had some pretty contained fights that left teams in pretty viable positions coming down to the wire there, and it led to some really good matches. So hopefully get a lot more of that. In fact, I know we're going to get a lot more of that here both today and tomorrow. So I can't wait to jump into it. Just waiting on a single player, folks. And then we are ready to jump into our very first match of this series and see who's going to be able to make an impact first.
Yeah, that is the one thing about Apex lobbies, right? We got 60 players, is it, inside of one lobby? I mean, that's so many people to try and manage to get in one spot and actually play out the game. So just give us one moment, folks. We'll be right inside of there. But still, going back to not only the map, but these teams that we've been talking about and what is to come today. I still think that there's one team to talk about on this list, John, and it's got to be GYD. Hold on one second because it's a blend of 3 different names here, so this is going to be pretty fun. Noski Yuki Dell, I think, is the name put together, but they just simply came together, slapped their names together, and this team has actually been playing extremely well inside of the last 6 months. First place inside of the ALGS Summer Circuit playoffs as well. I mean, this team, watching them play through the semifinal, actually quite the successful squad, finishing top 10 a handful of times as well, and just looking quite dominant overall.
Obviously, that's all inside of the semifinals. It is important to note, of course, that we are not going to see necessarily seedings or any points carried over from that. It's obviously a fresh slate for all of these teams, meaning that these first couple games are going to be very important for teams trying to make an impact early on here and solidify a top position on the scoreboard. Hopefully keeping the pressure off of them as we get into those later games, as of course, as you always know, teams just those couple points short of placing where they would like to be, needing to stress out to try to go for those extra KPs or whatever in the last 3 to 4 games. So as a result of that, we're going to see if any of these teams can give themselves a little bit more breathing room by setting up solidly inside of the first cluster of games that we're going to be playing out here in just a moment.
So be honest with me. Coming into this match, who's your favorite? You got to have a favorite watching through the semifinals. I know you do. There's somebody lay it in there where you're like, I really enjoyed this comp. I like what they did here. Who is the person that you found having the most action, or just really had the thing that you were looking for?
Onside was pretty friendly. Gave us some information, I believe, coming from the coach of the Alliance. Alliance sounds incredibly confident in their capability to win this tournament. And based on the results coming out of the semifinals, even though they placed second, not first, I don't know if I can disagree with that confidence. So I'm going to have to go with them. They're looking incredibly strong based off the results coming from those semifinals. But there's definitely some other dogs that are going to be able to contend with them here as well. And we're going to have to see if they'll be fully challenged and maybe forced to switch their comp up as well, because they're running something slightly away from the Revenant Octane comp that they've been running up until now.
Yeah, and this is actually something that is quite notable between the two semifinal groups. Semifinal 2, that group right there, quite top heavy, and how things ended up breaking down with first place finishes and stuff like that, especially between T-Rex and Alliance. It seemed that they were really going back and forth, and then Nessie, Major Pushers, and Gambit kind of hopped in there every once in a while. But then looking over at semifinals 1, it's really strung out as to who finished first place. Yes, there were some high kill games with some of these squads, but there wasn't a consistent top finisher. It seemed like these teams were a lot more down to actually get into these fights, and it just really wasn't working out for them. So this really could make for kind of a clash of different ideals inside of Apex. Some teams are really gunning for those KPs, whereas others are trying to play safe for a higher placement.
Yeah, a lot of teams feeling that they want to try and play more aggressive, get into the fights, try to secure themselves those extra KPs, whereas a lot of others feeling that consistent placement more important inside of this tournament. So let's not waste any time, folks, as I'm sure you can see at this point. We're getting into the drop phase now, so let's take a look here and see where our teams are going to land. More importantly, if we see anybody encroaching on anyone, more than likely not. It's the first game after all, but let's take a look and see anyway, as we've got our first team, Solo Q Goats, landing on the map now.
Solo Q Goats, a team that we were talking about a little while ago, John, and one of the ones that you noted on, only 2 top 3 finishes and an average of slightly less than 3 Ks per map, 3 kills per map, guys. So always having a consistent KP. Moving on through these points here, but either way, Solo Q Goat's going to be our first point of contact, but actually not. Major Pusher's already in an altercation. Speaking of altercations, this alternator can't get him out of it, and they've already been dusted. We've already lost a group, and Major Pushers make it out with 0 points.
Going to be NCD, I believe, cleaning them up there and taking all the rewards that'll come with it here at this landmark. So early kills for them. That'll be 3 KPs more than likely going over to their team, assuming that there wasn't an additional third party here trying to clean them up also. And obviously a good start, 3 points right off the bat to start off building yourselves with here. We'll have to see what else they'll be able to gain later on in this matchup as we keep an eye on them getting closer and closer to the circle. Speaking of the circle, we've got a brutal one here going way down to the southeast. Obviously, our team sitting close to the dome and launch site, as well as Lava City, going to be quite confident in their capability to take late-game positioning very early on as a result of these circles. But for a large majority of our other teams, especially the ones over at the top left side of the map by Skyhook, they have got a long run, and they're going to want to start it soon.
Yeah, not only a long run, but a dangerous one with the amount of congestion that'll be happening inside of this area. Jumping on board with Kick now, though, as they're inside of an engagement. Gibby Shield already down and seemingly able to actually create some space. And they're going to need that because Jakku needs to be able to heal back up. He'll get on top of that accordingly. And now Denze also going to lose some shield. LG not looking too hot right now, or at least Shiv, as he's actually lost a couple of shields as well. But everyone just playing this out quite slow as of right now, especially a lot slower from what we saw earlier on. But as soon as I say that, Yappers are going to hop too, and they're actually down inside of the tunnel. We're actually going to have one down immediately. Carry trying to pick up the pieces. He'll switch over to the Mozambique, trying to clean things up. Has the L-Star to assist as well, as Yappers will make it out of this one with a handful of KP as well as the Wraith in tow.
A little bit scary there is they almost lose control over the Wraith, a slight overcommitment. But the good news is the Wraith also able to get some really good damage going in there, and that allows for the other teammates to jump back in. Speaking of which, let's go back to the fight between Solo Q Goats and Kick here. Solo Q Goats pushing heavily onto the roof, and I believe successfully pushing Kick out here. Oh no, not looking too good for them though. If Q as well as Zippeth now down, probably not revivable here either. Diff already getting finished off. Zippeth probably the same fate in just a moment, so everything's gonna fall to Shiv to try and survive here for the Solo Q Goats, and he's not gonna have an easy time doing so. He's on the run right now. The entirety of Avant-Garde trying to chase him down.
Oh, Avant-Garde with the chase are able to actually find the kill as well, and that's going to be kill leader here for Defaus. Avant-Garde starting off strong and clearing out most of Fragment West here. So
More of a
looks like they might actually
more of a democratic kill leader. Like a couple other teams might have those 3Ks at this point as well. But either way, another fight getting started here as the action continues. Third Impact going to be sitting up on top of the roof, trying to press another team out of position. And at least initially, it has worked through the Gibby Shield, reasserting it. I don't believe Balin is going to be able to stay here for a long time, though. He has to fall back very quickly, regroup with the rest of his team, as that top roof position is going to be suicide. There's no way to play to the top of that. No cover to work around there as soon as that bubble shield goes away.
Yeah, and with Horizon on board for Third Impact, they'll also be able to reposition and take those fights from other areas that no other squad really will be able to without her. Obviously, having the ability to be just, gravity welled into the air or gravity raised into the air is going to make things a lot easier for you when it comes to trying to fight these battles, like where Ethics is right now on top of this roof. But obviously, Horizon having a little bit of a nerf recently, or at least looking into it to make sure that you can't just spam back and forth on top of her lift there. But either way, she's still really strong when it comes to battling positions like what we have for Ethics on top of this roof. So we'll see how this goes for them. As we are on board with Ethics, they're actually going to be going for kind of a traditional aggressive comp here with the Octane. Want to be able to get in people's faces, but now the engage is actually onto them as they're pushing up onto the shield. Yoko will actually down one, pushes through the Gibby shield. His friend will be down. He'll be downed as well. It's all down to Cray, who has to try and pick things up. Has that Spitfire. Gonna have to slam a mag, though. Able to get some damage off onto one. Ends up going for the pickup now as Balon actually end up popping the Phoenix kit.
Gonna be the last one left standing here. Gets the Phoenix kit up though, so can try to go for the re-engage on the roof in just a moment as he loops his way back around. Had the option to try to revive a teammate. He's actually gonna double back there and try to go for that now that he's realizing, okay, my opponent's probably already halfway to getting their teammates back up, and he's right to assume that. In fact, Yoko already tried to go for the aggro play onto Balin. He saw the shield getting popped just on the top platform there, so try to see if they could take advantage upon that, but unfortunately not going to be the case. Problem, though, is going to be, I'm not sure if Balin was able to get up his third teammate, so they might just be stuck with two for the rest of this game if they're not going to be able to scavenge that player back up. Circle now coming in. It is only the first circle, so they should be able to eat quite a bit of the damage from this one if they do want to play for that. But as we can now see here for Third Impact, they have lost that third player. Their Wraith, unfortunately, down. Going to have to try and recover the banner if they want to get her back in sometime later in the game.
Yeah, and this is a very scary situation for them because Third Impact doesn't necessarily know what this other squad has in mind. Are they going to stick around for the KPs and try and play the circle, or are they just immediately going to hop on? And we'll have to find out here. And as we jump on board, it looks like, it looks like they actually might want to play for the KPs. They'll reposition to the top of the roof. Balin G still obviously inside here as Creo actually hop inside of the building.
I mean, look, like Balin's like alone. Like,
yeah,
that's way off as well.
I don't really know why Jason is repositioned.
He's either going for the banner or just trying to. Yeah, he's going for the res right now. It looks like.
They're splitting up for the res. I see what you're getting at here. They want to be able to pick up that banner inside the building, then immediately grab that on the other end. But here's the problem. Ethics still sticking around for Balin, and they'll be able to take him down as well. So Third Impact, already looking quite rough, but definitely worse for wear when it comes down to it now.
Either way, like we said, it's still only inside of the first circle currently. Oh, it does look like we have another team potentially trying to dive in on this as well. Going to be some problem there for Rubik, Yoko, and the rest of the team here as a third party potentially going to jump in, try to mess things up. We're going to see that airstrike work its way in here to do some serious damage. Them trying to escape from this situation, but thankfully on the inside able to avoid a large majority of those strikes there and be able to get out of that defensive bombard without too much of an issue. Now going to look to possibly strike back here as they know the angle, they know specifically where their new opponents are positioned at. They're just looking for the correct capability to re-engage, which is often the hardest part of Apex here, choosing when is the right time to try to hop in on your opponents. But that's not going to stop them. They're swinging around, taking up new positioning here, trying to find a new angle of engagement, specifically against Rubik and PKM sitting up on top.
Still on ring one here, so that damage going to be consistent, but quite bleak. Very minimal for the time being, especially with those med kits that they have. So they'll be able to play this out for quite some time, but finally the reposition coming through. No one wanting to stay inside of the warehouse any longer. So don't want to try and get those KPs. Jazaz will still be all the way off in the distance for third impact. So TI looking to try and place higher, as Jazaz will just try and play out their life instead. Can't necessarily run back into the circle and try and pick up their friends. So it looks like this engagement now done over near Fragment, or Epicenter, excuse me.
Look at how many people have already moved over towards Dome here for our late game engagement. A lot of movement across the map. Only 4 squads have been knocked out so far, though, so this is a lot of containment. As we work our way back over to launch site here, we can see that there is 2 other squads potentially going to be going up against each other, and one of them is our kind of favorite here as well, Alliance, or at least quite a bit of a favorite among quite a few of the fans here, as they're trying to hold on against a bit of an onslaught right now, but seemingly with good position to play that out, not under any serious risk, at least not immediately. That could change, though. The flanks coming in, they're going to try to pinch them out here as the other squad will try to get aggressive against them.
This is quite scary for Alliance, and they're actually going up against Underrated right now, so we'll see if the name holds true. Alliance, especially Vaves with a very strong position here, but he's actually end up being silenced, so not going to be able to use his abilities. No aggressive push here either from Underrated. Don't want to try and get in the face of the Gibraltar, and you can't exactly blame them with that shield being down, as well as the Mastiff. That's probably going to be a little too strong to try and crack. So they'll reposition instead, actually play the opposite side here of Countdown.
So no engagement between some of those top dog teams. Those are some of the top teams from both semifinal Group 1 and Group 2, so almost already seeing a collision of the greatest there from our play over the past couple days, but not going to happen immediately.
Ooh, that's T-Rex across from them as well.
Oh, some of the big dogs already making it through here and putting themselves into good positions early on. Obviously, no guarantee of a top finish just as of yet. It says we have so many squads congested in these late circle positions here, but we will have to wait and see who gets potentially pinched out over this next 5 to 10 minutes of play here. As with the circles closing in, we can see a couple teams getting gatekeeped, and I believe one of them being Alliance, just getting pushed out of the circle there. We'll see what kind of room they have to work with to push back in a moment here. Hake is specifically trying to play out, trying to put some aggression onto that team around the corner here, but as you guys can see, taking quite a bit of heat in the process, having to back up and re-battery. The good news is his 2 teammates were able to make it through into safer territory here, but they've also got to try to get the Wraith back through, which will be a bit of a difficult part here now. NCD also unleashing some hellfire on them for the distance.
Oh, and this is going to be extremely problematic, especially with that Anvil receiver on the R301. Just hitting so hard from range right now as Dolphin. He'll go for the reposition as well, just using that tactical ability very quickly with Octane and sprinting on down into the valley. But Alliance look like they actually want to take this fight, as they'll actually push down inside of this area as well. Hackus going for a long rotation all the way to the outside, just trying to get a stronger position here. Could possibly go for a height advantage as well, but it seems like the jig is up. They've already been found out, as Alliance will end up popping the Bloodhound ult as well. They'll be sonar scanned here, so the info solid for the other squad is NCD. Arcstar is out. They're ready for the engagement.
Oh man, Hakes here just cannot get a break. He's constantly under pressure. So many nades coming in here from NCD as well to try to collapse. That's going to be the defensive bombardment coming out. I'm not sure if they have the shield ready for the Gibby. Yes, they do. So that's going to save them right here, as they've got no top coverage to avoid that damage otherwise here. We're going to see Bardo move in there, drop his own bubble in the process. But as we can see, NCD already inside of the Alliance bubble, trying to push directly into them, prevent them from getting anything going here. Great flank from G7 Dolphin here, trying to make some big moves, and he's done it. Takes down Hakis. The rest of the squad falls as well, and that's Alliance going down in game 1 in 16th place.
Well, hard start here for Alliance, but an amazing one for NCD, as they'll also take kill lead here as well. You said before, it's a little bit of a democratical kill lead with 3 KPs being there, but we're no longer spreading the love, folks. It's 4 KPs, and it's all on NCD.
Also going to see Kick get knocked out apparently there too, from the looks on our team tracker. That's going to leave them out of the pool.
Solo Q Goats are gone too.
Yeah, we watched them get wiped relatively early on, unfortunately, so Solo Q Goats never really able to make the impact that I'm sure they wanted to make in this game. Plenty of other teams still in the action, though. And more importantly, quite a few straggler squads here on the board as well. Avant-Garde, only with a single player left alive. Third Impact, the same fate has befallen them. Reply Totem with only 2 standing. So there's going to be quite a few people here trying to play for positioning in the corners and seeing what kind of impact, if any, they can make when forced out into an engagement.
Difficult moments now for a couple of these squads as they'll have to watch on and not be able to affect their lead or what drastically these other teams are doing to this scoreboard. As we hop on board with Nessie, one of I would have to say one of the fan favorite logos here from everything that I've been able to find. I mean, come on, you got to love what this squad has, and what they have is apparently not exactly what Graceful's name is looking for right now. As a couple shots go wide, but either way, it's the G7. It's expected. It's going to be that spam rifle, just trying to get some damage tagged up here, but not able to find what they necessarily want. Either way, though, hopping back on board with NCD, they've got a really strong position now from that last fight. They've actually repositioned up this valley here onto the top end of this canyon, able to actually use this top end and actually look down in onto their targets, get some solid damage off here, pop that Gibby shield early on the squad that they're now engaging into, and Nax is not only going to pop his Bloodhound ult, but also get that scan here. He'll get a good read on the situation, but they'll only be able to deal some damage as of right now. No downs just yet.
NCD, though, probably going to be able to keep the pressure up here. There's not a lot of room for their opponents to work with specifically, and they have the outright advantage in this engagement here. Just need to really finish and seal the deal. Of course, being careful of any shield swaps that are going to happen there that they'll have to account for when they commit to this. Trying to push them into the tunnel. No luck on cracking out that player there, so they're going to have to keep the pressure up if they want to move this further. The Gibby shield will save them at least temporarily, but they're not going to mind this. NCD pushing directly to the inside, looking to finish this fight off as they've nearly done it already. So many players going down. Just one or two more straggling, but oh no, I believe that one's going to get stolen. There's another party jumping in from the other end of this one that's going to be taking that final kill.
Oh, NCD taking some damage, but they're ready for this. You can already see the push coming through. More bats as they're prepared to try and re-engage, but the EMP out from Crypto is going to make this situation so very dire. Could have a push coming through at any moment in time, but it seems to be more for space control than anything. Zhran and the rest of the squad don't necessarily want to push down into this just yet, and you can see exactly why. The circle is favorable as they'll be gatekeeping the exit here.
Sure if they're actually actively holding it currently, so it might be clear skies for these guys to loop around in a moment as they might be dealing with something else. Natsuki Yuki Dell here as we go back to them, the self-named squad. I was very worried when I first read that to make sure I wasn't mispronouncing something, but thankfully it's just an amalgamation of names there, so I think we got it pretty much right. As we continue to watch them try to survive, Sir Dell with the red shields here, already been able to upgrade it, but still peppering in the damage on multiple members, trying to push into his other two teammates. GYD here holding under the pressure, but unable to make impact to down anyone just as of yet, kind of just surviving and thriving on their own here on the corner as they get prepared to open up a pathway to push forward in the next minute and 20 seconds. In fact, that push is going to start now. They'll begin to loop around now that they push their opponents behind coverage, and they might have the capability to engage here onto Yoko and some of the others sitting around the corner.
Oh, and this is going to get so difficult for these squads as the defensive bombardment comes out. Yoko and the rest of the squad needs a dip, but actually some trouble coming through as Noski and Yuki, they kick in the front door. Dell with some damage. He'll be able to switch out here or at least get some more mats as they'll clear this out, but it looks like there's another squad here. Dell down yet another one. He gets back outside into the Gibby shield. Sonar detection out as they'll be discovered on the other end of this vehicle. Not too much damage coming through onto them, though, as finally Dell will get lit up from the window. He needs to get the shield bat down as fast as he possibly can, but NCD's on the case, but it's more Dolphin on it than anything else. He'll pop some shots with the Eva as the Gibby shield will come out for them as well, trying to deal the damage back onto them as, wow, the shield staying so consistent for Baldal here as he'll be able to stay alive, and some amazing plays coming through from the Gibraltar.
Some good stuff from Bonoli and the rest of NCD here as they are cleaning up so many fights. 7 KP specifically on the Gibby. We'll see what the total is after this game there once we're able to get better total on how many they were actually able to capture for themselves. But either way, some serious impact coming in just on the KP department going to be made by them. We're into the top 10 now as well, so if they can survive for even just a few minutes, even if they decide to play passively from this point forward, which, let's be clear, they're probably not going to do that based on the way they've been playing this game up until this point. But if they need to play to that play style, play for placements, things are only going to continue to get better for them here as we're now starting to get into the more serious points as we reached the second half of our teams.
And looking through the team tracker right now, we can see a couple of the squads that we ended up talking about before. Underrated still here. T-Rex still has 2. Third Impact actually making it through. John still have Jazaz running around somewhere. We'll have to find out where they are a little bit later on, because Underrated currently taking some heat. Horizon already losing his shield. Dazo about to follow suit, but they'll end up actually downing the last remaining member of that squad. Still 4 around them, though, as this circle is getting quite constrictive. You can see the territory they have to work with. Gambit have to try and find some space, but oh no, they're in some hot water now. The reposition good for the Wraith, and Ardeki will be able to get some shield bats back into this situation.
Artigo going to have to come in for the assist, save Hardeki's life here as he takes a little bit too much pressure out of that initial fight. The good news is the cavalry has arrived, and the other 2 teammates are going to be able to clean things up very quickly, wiping out that squad, bringing us down another number here as we enter our top 8. Gambit on the outskirts of the dome, though, going to be in a bit of an awkward position as they will have to play on the edge of the circle here, using whatever coverage is presented to them, as there's really nothing left on the inside of the dome itself here. At least not without them having to take a massive risk in order to obtain it. A lot of teams with very, very spread coverage across the way here with DK Swinney's squad with some good positioning. We can also finally see that last member of TI as well, just hiding in the midst of the chaos there going on in Dome, as I believe he's crouched under one of the buildings, just trying to survive and thrive for as long as he can. And to be fair, he's probably going to make it pretty far if he continues to play passively in that corner.
Just being the literal physical embodiment of a sewer rat. Just like, I'm just going to hide underneath this building next to the pipes. This is one of those moments where you have like the sniper scope on like a charge rifle or something. You're just staring at your opponents from across the way, and you're like, all right, so I can't shoot anyone. Otherwise, I'm gonna die.
He's just really gonna have to hope that Gambit doesn't come in from his direction, because that'll be a very unfortunate end. He's not very well hidden from anyone that's gonna push in from the outside of Dome here. Definitely try to hide more from the players in the buildings than anything else. Speaking of Gambit, they've got a mean cutoff here. They're actually being pursued slightly, but also trying to play for denial a bit as another team tries to push against them. Gambit so far holding on strong here, but still taking some heat, specifically Artigo having to go for the full battery up as he also gets his Gibby shield down on the ground.
Well, Gambit looking very solid coming into these last handful of squads here. Not top 5 just yet, still have 6, but that could be changing quite soon, as Jay Savage seems to be in an engagement, going to lose quite a bit of health, but this building play still quite strong for Sirius and the rest of the squad. Lots of damage being dealt from across the way as well, as this is, oh man, this is going to break out into an absolute war here in a moment. There is just so many positions just pulled around this one building, especially with Clone and their squad losing their Gibby shield as of right now. Obviously, that going to be on about a 30-second cooldown here. They're still going to have time when it comes to this circle, but as soon as that circle starts to move, it's going to be a mad dash for positioning.
We'll see how crazy this gets in just a second here. So many teams going to have to run, as Stokes was just mentioning. You've got potentially 3 to 4 different squads here, all jumbled up, all trying to make their best effort to get through possibly that one single choke point. So we're going to have to see how chaotic that ends up being.
As shooting each other.
As now we are down to a top 5 situation. Nags, really the only player that we can see from the current POV on the outside of this as well. So Nags potentially with a big advantage to play off of. I believe Nags may be one of the last players alive for a squad, though. So he may also have to be careful with his positioning if that is going to end up being the case. As, excuse me, no, not the case. Nags does have team support, so can play a little bit more aggressively. It's actually Savage that's from Reply Totem and is with the squad that only has this single player left standing. As you can see, he did recently lose a Maz there. We are going to see a strike coming down here. Savage primed with a nade to try and at least mask the sound a little bit as he works his way out into the open, chucking more of them as he goes for the run there. Is actually going to be able to make it across the lava lake, but not much further than that. He goes down just seconds later as we switch to our third-person POV. Gambit actually ends up with a very powerful position, besides really one of the only bits of cover, real cover anyway, that they have to work with here. Croissant also trying to punish this team, but they do have the Gibby shield to play off of. A slight angle presented to Kata there, but not enough for him to commit to it. Another Gibby shield supporting this team, and there we go. Kata able to finish off Sirius, and I believe finishing off that team in the process, the other 2 teammates falling in the process. The problem for this squad, how they're suffering the same fate. They have no way to push out against this. Gambit is controlling the entire scenario, tearing that team to pieces as Robe and Kana gonna go down. Only 1 squad left, but Gambit has full control over the zone right now, and they're gonna tear it apart and take control of our first game.
And Gambit Esports walk away with match one. And could you believe it? I mean, honestly, going into those last final circles, probably not the biggest surprise to a lot of you, mainly based off of just the positioning that Gambit had. They played that perfectly around Dome, and they were one of the initial people there as well. We saw them get into some earlier fights, but right there near the tail end, able to grab some very strong positioning and translate that into a win. And what a round from them overall. Just very consistent, nothing crazy, just very, very strong play around Dome.
Yeah, I actually want to see how many KPs Gambit ended up with, because I don't feel like they ended up with anything crazy except for what they were able to acquire towards the end there. So maybe like 6 or 7 being picked up at most in that final engagement. So we'll see on top of that. I mean, that could still end up being like a pretty impressive game if they manage to get 3 to 4 more from another fight, which I'm pretty sure we watched them win at least one other engagement. So if that's going to be the case, that's a pretty impressive game overall, because not only do they manage to still pick up that many KPs, especially with how they, let's be real, they have great positioning. They just tear it up at the end of this map right here. But if they're still able to get that while avoiding the cluster that happened inside of Dome itself, where they would have easily been at the greatest risk in that game, that's just some really good play, really good control over the circle, as well as mastery of the point system to be able to channel all that while, to be completely honest, being at relatively low risk that entire game for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing, is just being able to deal with the risk that comes to, playing BRs. You can have anyone rotate on you at any moment in time. This is all guesswork. There's nothing in here that's going to be, the shining beacon of consistency. I think that the biggest thing that really assisted Gambit inside of that last circle as well is just simply having the Kraber on Hardeki. I mean, you saw it there. Right when everyone floods out of that building, that Kraber is immediately going to be an armor break for someone, no matter any way that you slice it. If you're consistent inside of aim and you're able to tag somebody, no longer having shields for that squad. So very, very difficult for them, but an amazing match from Gambit nevertheless.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to close out our first game. We've got 7 more coming up right around the corner, so stick with us and we'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Game 1 has concluded in quite the fashion there. Gambit mopping up the competition after that massive fight over at the Dome. Didn't leave any survivors, unfortunately, as they were able to gatekeep their way to a victory. Let's take a look at the scores and see where all of our teams currently sit. Obviously, we won't have an overall score to take a look at because, well, we've only played 1 game, so it would just look exactly the same. But as we can see, Gambit, despite winning, this is exactly what I was talking about, only getting 9 kills, so not technically speaking going to be in first place currently. They're actually going to be tied with NCD, who we were following quite a bit during that game, and as you guys can now see, managed to rack up 3 additional kills because they got second. Both teams ended up with the same exact score coming out of that first game. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And NCD going to be Dolphin, Nogs, and Badoli. And like you said, we're on board for them, on board with them quite often throughout that. And I think, honestly, their best engagement has to be NCD up against Alliance. I mean, Alliance really trying to fight out of that valley, but not able to do it. NCD shutting them down every single step of the way. And you can see Alliance not even making it out of that with a KP.
You can see a reply totem. Another interesting, that was our one single straggler that was left in the Dome fight as well after losing, I believe, his or other 2 teammates out of that fight. Still able to make it to 4th place in that mad scramble, and on top of the 4 KPs, that's going to keep them in 4th place as well. Some of the big dogs from the semifinals, though, not able to make impact, as Stokes was mentioning Alliance down there at 16th. Not the only one, T-Rex as well. That's the top 2 positions from our second semifinal, both in the bottom of the pack off that first game. But important to note, only the first game. So plenty, and I repeat, plenty. As you can see here now, there's 16 games, plenty of opportunities for these guys to rebound. So let's take a look and see specifically if they're going to be able to do that. The second game is getting started. We're going to follow Gambit, of course, our current champions, coming out of game number 1, but holding the crown very lightly. NCD quite literally breathing down their necks, trying to take it from them.
Yeah, if anything, I don't think anyone's holding it right now. I think they're just both standing inside of the same room, staring at it on its mantle. That's about it.
They're trying to figure out a power sharing agreement right now, but by the time they figure it out, someone else is probably going to take the lead. So
yeah, this is probably going to be ending in a terrible divorce. We'll see what happens with the kids. I don't really know. We'll have to figure it out. But either way, Gambit.
This joke's not working. Move on.
Gambit gonna have to try and pull ahead here. We'll see if they can get away with the crown. But I think that the thing that that Gambit's going to be going for throughout this is just like what we were talking about earlier, consistency. That's the biggest thing. Is like, yes, they might have not been able to pop off as hard as NCD inside of the KPs, but just based off of their positioning alone throughout that entire map. It just seemed as though Gambit were ahead of everyone when it came down to map sense, as well as just being able to hold things down at the position that they were actually moving themselves into, especially inside of that last circle.
We said that only with the 9 KPs not able to solidify enough of an advantage to really push them ahead. But the more important thing is that they start out on really good foundation here. And if they can repeat anything close to that effort in some of these following games, they will more than likely be able to pretty consistently keep up control over the lead that they now very delicately hold. We are going to see quite a bit of action over towards Skyhook. I'm not sure if we've had any teams fully commit to each other just as of yet, but you've got potentially 3 different squads really, really close to each other. If not 4, it's a little hard to tell sometimes with the jumble of names, but we'll take a look at that, I'm sure, in a moment. Other than that, though, everybody for the most part respecting each other's territory. Refinery might get a little hot here in a second, too. We've got one squad, I believe that's TI, moving in from Survey and Epicenter over in that direction. So we could see our pink team at the top right challenged as well.
Yeah, it could be problematic. It would be a good start here for Third Impact, as in the previous map, not really able to put anything together. It was mostly just trying to survive for a solid placement and get a good reset here into map 2. Looks like Third Impact do want to try and get this engagement and get some KPs on the board early on. Just remember what happened to them last time, guys. Balon and Ziki going down, and Jazaz having to play out the rest of the situation and try and get some more of those placement points. And looks like they're going to go for the reposition immediately here with the Horizon, able to get up on top of these big old marshmallows, try and get a better position onto this roof here, and they're actually going to be able to tag up their opponents. Their impact starting off quite strong.
Trying to work with a Volt at this range here. Ziki looking for any impact that can be made. Unfortunately, impact with that gun at this range going to be relatively limited here. Just trying to go for chip damage more than anything. Of course, the Evo shields still need to be built up here too, so that's the more important part about this, at least early on in the match. We have seen the solo queue go again, though, getting knocked out. Still no luck, unfortunately, inside of this tournament today, because they're going to fall in last place inside of our second matchup. So see if they can improve that in future games. But for now, the story remains sad. Aside from that, though, not going to see too much building up over in that top right position. So we'll move away from that towards Kick, who are another one of our top dogs from the semifinals here. Kick, as well, just in general in the European community here. Not going to be feeling too hot about themselves at the beginning of this matchup, because 2 of them are dead. And it's going to fall to Denze now to try and clutch this out. Still has some time left on those banner recoveries, so might be able to sneak back over his opponents are not in the area, try to grab those and see if there's a recovery in the future. But for now, things are also looking bleak for them. TI getting aggressive, finally engaging to that fight, though, and a good start to it. Ziki taking quite a bit of shield damage, but Jazaz also going to jump in and rebound on that. However, an Arcstar going to rip his shields to pieces. The team on the inside looking to defend this, doing a good job of maintaining their current position. We are going to see that pull work its way in, though, and that's going to become a little bit cumbersome for the squad on the inside. In fact, one of them getting melted quite heavily, but Ziki goes down first, trying to survive here. Now, Third Impact want to keep the heat up as Jazaz tries to put pressure on the enemy. Jibby, there we go. That's going to be the Bloodhound going down, but still has the Jibby around the corner to deal with, and that's going to fall to Balon, their own Jibby here, in order to get the job done as they finish off Yoko on a quick greed kill. Same thing for Air, as 2 to 3 of those squad members now dead.
Well, Third Impact will be able to rebound here and get Ziki back up, but they still have to worry about that Gibby that could still possibly be around here. Obviously, we can see them scurrying on the outside of the building, but I don't know if they're necessarily going to hop back in just yet. Want to see if Third Impact will possibly leave the area so they can get those banners back and try and get a redeploy on their squad. But everyone knows how difficult that can be inside of these lobbies.
That was an enemy right around the corner.
Denze. Wow. All right. I thought we were playing Apex for a minute. Apparently, we're playing something a whole heck of a lot different. And this is very, very sneaky as of right now. Denze.
It's Skyrim.
Very, very similar. Yeah, he just put a bucket on his head very quickly and just robbed the guy blind.
Sneak 100 for Denze here as one of the other members from, I believe, OSP, if we're reading the minimap correctly, walks right past him, not able to notice him, thankfully, due to the corner position. Denze, though, not going to take a risk on that happening again, so will fall outside of Skyhook and try to play away from that. Speaking of Lucian themselves here, we're going to continue to see them make some good impact. Some great spray control there coming out from Danche. Great long distance damage going out to the top of the Skyhook. Unfortunately, though, his opponent can just hide away from that for the most part. So we'll still be happy to take the Evo Shield points at the end of the day, but going to have to be careful not to engage too much to this so as to leave himself vulnerable when his opponents decide to get aggressive themselves. They have that top advantage, or rather that high ground advantage there, and they definitely have the capability to initiate from there as well.
Yeah, the beauty of this lineup for OCN right now as well is that if they can get some consistent damage off and try and drain these batteries from their opponents, they always have that jump pad of Octane to immediately engage. And that's the biggest problem when it comes to a lot of these things, because you can see it right here.
Here they go.
It happens to OCN instead. Oh no, the Gibby's been down. We'll get the pop of the ult here as Danch trying to clean up, trying to assist the rest of his squad, but he's taking damage as well. Tries to hop inside of the shield, switches over to the Mastiff, able to get some big shots off onto the Gibbies. They're playing back and forth, using his opponent as his shield as well, but he's not able to get away with it. Instead, it's down to the last remaining member, the Revenant of OCN, to try and pick up the pieces. Both of his teammates have been down, and instead of trying to go for the engagement, he tries to leave, but that's the wrong move as well, as we're going to have two squads wiped out here as T-Rex are able to just come through with the sweeper.
That's going to be OSP knocked out. Not the only ones that are going to end up going down there either, as Stokes is just mentioning here. So quite a few getting knocked out, and we can actually see who it is. Like we said already, OCN and Solo Q Goats are first two to get knocked out, but the third squad, or rather the second in that specific engagement, Avant-Garde now getting eliminated also here. But we've got more action going down. T-Rex trying to keep the pressure on to Kick, because they were also down to their last player. And there you go. That's Denze finally getting figured out, more importantly, killed out of this match that will lead to the full elimination of Kick also. We're down to the top 16.
Moving very quickly here, but mostly just, battles around Skyhook. Nothing really else going on across the map. Yes, we did have some things going on over towards Refinery, but that was about it. Besides that, things actually been quite quiet across the board as we hop on board with Croissant, which things haven't been quiet for them apparently. Clone as well as Canna both down. It's all down to Robin as of right now, who's taking quite a bit of damage, all based on this second circle, which is going to be dealing a little bit more chip damage than that first one. So I have to see if he can get through with those meds, but Alliance with a really strong position here, able to destroy the Revenant Totem as well. The Death Totem not going to be able to assist at all. Very bad insurance. This Alliance will be able to wrap around and clean up this entire squad, it seems. And that's actually going to be Horizon and the boys, who actually had a pretty solid finish inside of match one.
Alliance already making improvements on the performance in the previous match, but unfortunately, they got pinched out very early on. Made quite a bit of a mention to that and led to them getting only the 16th place finish there. So hopefully not one that they are going to repeat. And as we're already seeing, of course, making improvements upon that as they now take a position just outside this new landmark here, looking to make their mark. But Novidel needs to get aggressive here. They are in a really great gatekeeping position right now. You can see there's a good 2 to 3 squads that are going to have to work their way in their general direction. So they'll more than likely thrive upon that position and wait for those opportunities to be sent their way, especially with that triple take primed up with a 4 to 8 sight here. They can do some serious damage from range and probably get some free Evo level ups in the process.
Okay, well, everything falls quiet on the map as of right now. Everyone with some pretty consistent positioning, except for Crumb and them down in the bottom here. Or near staging. Or near throwing.
Man, look at how much control Alliance have. If it doesn't get contested by anybody on the north side right now.
No, that's the thing is like the Alliance, they're very, very good at positioning. Just that the last match was obviously just the outlier when it came down to it. They were really, really strong inside of the semifinals, and they just could not win that fight that we saw inside of match one. But speaking of match ones and trying to bounce back, we're on board with T-Rex as they're popping shots of the Kraber at their opponent currently inside of Meltdown, not able to deal enough damage as of right now, as they won't choose to push forward just yet. But as soon as I say that, Kearney looking for the shot, might be able to find it here. The Kraber goes wide, gonna have to try and slam another round into that, but not able to actually get it done. As soon as we say that though, NCD, especially Dolphin actually, trying to get across this field. They'll be able to get some meds and get the reposition instead, but it doesn't seem like anyone wanting to try and push the envelope as of right now.
No, all of our teams playing safe. There's very delicate positioning, and more importantly, a lot of very easy ways for teams to overcommit and lead to themselves getting eliminated if they try to play too greedily here. So to continue to see a relatively passive stance be taken by a large majority of the lobby here as everybody playing for circle positioning over all else, it seems, at this point in the game. That's going to continue to change up, though. T-Rex has been keeping the heat up on this squad here, despite the fact that their opponents don't really seem to want the fight. They're keeping it up here. Let's be a little bit careful as T-Rex does get shot from the side. Unsure if that's going to be the same squad or not, but either way, they end up leaving themselves into a little bit of an awkward position here by the pillar. Now going to have to try and play off that as they attempt to work their way deeper into the train yard so they have something better to work with. Not going to end up working too well, though. Dippities gets the first down. Or Dippities is going to be the first down, I should say. And now they're going to get jumped on here as well. That's Nags as well as Dolphin putting some serious damage onto this squad. Could lead to the outright elimination, and in fact, nearly does it. I believe only one player is still standing now for T-Rex and is running over towards the warehouse.
Oh, Zephyr. We'll be able to try and play for a higher finish here, but here's the problem. T-Rex running into a lot of obstacles. Therefore, going to have to reposition yet again. If there's a character to do it, it's got to be the Octane. Already popping the tactical ability, able to get through this. The bob and weave as he's trying to find some safer positioning. Has to get the shield out as well, but here's the problem. The circle's closing again, and look at all that damage he's taking. He's got to get back in the circle or get some meds. All of these shields do nothing to this circle. He just needs to be able to get back inside at a moment's notice. Finally gonna pop a med kit, which will assist in keeping them alive to at least get to the top 10. But so far for T-Rex, it's not looking hot.
Things, however, are looking much better for Alliance as we switch back over to them one more time. Already picking up, just specifically on Hakis, 3 KPs. Oh my god, and look at this absolute stack of mats they have for themselves built up right here, too.
What?
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 12 batteries, probably like 6 or 7 cells, as well as a bunch of other syringes there, too. So it's mainly the batteries that we care about, but they are ready for a war in that little canyon right there.
They have an absolute arsenal at their disposal right now. At any moment in time, they can just run out, take a full-on gunfight, come back, shield up, and do it all over again. So we'll see if the strategy works out and holds true for them. But either way, we're hopping on board with one of our favorite names as of right now, I'd have to say, through match one. Noski Yuki Dell, is they're hopping right into the fray, and a fray it is as it bounces back and forth, but they control it so very well. Polynesian squad tries to push forward, but the Mastiff's just too strong from the Gibby and Twitch, and it just eats the opposing squad alive. And that's going to be some KPs for GYD. They'll be able to push on forward, but as soon as we hop on board with NCD, they seem to be doing more of the same.
Some good stuff coming in from NCD, already making impact and currently in contention to be one of our top teams, if not the top team, after the way they played in the last matchup here. So going to see if they can pull off the same thing yet again. They're already, once again, making a mark here with 3 KPs sitting on just this one player. And we will keep up and see how many more they're going to be able to get for themselves. We've already seen how aggressive this team has been just off of that fight from Dome in Game 1. Looking, I'm sure, to do something similar here in Game 2. A lot of teams still building up over here towards the train yard, mainly just going to be NCD with control of the zone right now, though. So needs to quickly move, however, as the zone will not remain safe for very long. NCD probably currently discussing what the best path is going to be. Obviously, they go down from here. There's another 2 squads they have to fight. That's before they even get into the circle, but it's unfortunately the same fate if they go topside here. So it's really about them just kind of picking their poison, and we'll see which way they decide to go in a moment.
Either way this breaks, this is going to be quite problematic for a handful of these squads. You can see the minimal amount of cover they're going to have with this final circle, and especially with the position already being taken up from quite a few of these squads, obviously already having insight as to where this is going to go. They're going to be able to gatekeep quite well, but oh, Dolphin, oh my, they burned
the last T-Rex player
alive. The Kraber immediately breaks the legendary shield and just throws him down. What a shot from Dolphin, and very nice from NCD overall, so they'll be able to claim some space. Dolphin in some trouble now, though, so they'll have to back off.
Kraber's also almost out of ammo, so they're going to have to possibly trade that out, if there's even going to be an opportunity to do so at some point later on here. Only a single shot remaining. Going to get some return fire sent at them by Liangi over there across the canyon also. They need to be careful of not just the squad they're currently fighting in GYD, but also some of the other ones in the area, as we're now coming down to that last half of the lobby once again here. Our team tracker up, like we just saw, T-Rex getting knocked out, 3rd impact out of the fight. Disco Boys currently in our top 5, also getting eliminated there too. Some other notable teams underrated. The top team out of semifinal 1 now out of the running for this one also.
Well, speaking of consistent teams from our semifinals, we got Alliance once again, who are looking for their best finish so far. Remember, match 1 not going too well for them, but match 2 looking to be a lot stronger of a start. Obviously, match 2 out of 16, so a long road ahead of them, and they're looking to start things as of right now. Alliance, or more specifically, Hackett.
They've added more to this stack.
Headed back towards the
Phoenix kits.
And they got Phoenix kits now and ammo. They have every syringes. What don't they have? Like everything but the kitchen sink apparently laid inside of this little corner here over in the canyon, as they're constantly dipping back and forth out of this centerpiece that they're using to hold on to. These teams just not able to try and crack this nut at all. Have Graceful, NSY up here with JMW. The lower angle is, oh, it looks like Alliance want to try and get aggressive. Mayday playing a little bit too close up onto the corner is going to take a lot of heat and decides to back off.
It'd be a bit of a stalemate for the time being. Alliance slowly losing the zone of control that has been working out brilliantly for them up until this point. We're going to see, though, Hakis getting aggressive, swinging out. Mady, of course, will spot that, give the warning to JMW and Graceful here. But regardless, Hakis still trying to find that impact. Not the easiest shots to hit, apparently, here, as now he's over to the Mozambique, trying to finish off his opponent, but unable to get the job done. Thankfully, Portal was available, going to be able to fall back to the entire wealth of healing materials that is available to Alliance in much safer terms as well.
I got to make sure to reload that Mozambique as well, just in case you need it. Although it might be a joke sometimes, so those hammer point rounds, that thing can definitely deal a lot of damage. We're going to have the defensive bombardment come out as Hakis has some solid positioning, not going to take any damage from this, in fact, as he starts to work his way up the side of this rock. Graceful and the rest of Nessie trying to lock up inside of the Gibby shield, but oh no, the damage starting to come through. GYD as well on the other end of things, actually able to get some KPs, but they actually end up getting downed as well, or at least Nasco will be down. They're going to try and pick him up as of right now, but they're locked in behind this rock. Some really solid damage here from Yuki as they continue to get sonar detected. They're literally just fighting for their lives around this single piece of cover.
NCD was lost in the chaos of these last few moments also, so they're going to be eliminated from play. Quite a few of the Alliance members going down there also. In fact, I think they've been knocked out completely as we go down to 7 squads, unable to win out that fight as they were trying to get aggressive or jumped on by another team here. We're back on Gambit's POV, who are still thriving. Also, some great impact being made by them, specifically their Bloodhound here. Leogri already with 3 kills, and I'm sure there's more than that that's been built up for this squad. They've got great intel on another team, but they don't want to press the advantage too heavily right now. We're down to the top 6, and it's going to continue to shrink from that point. As you can see, there are still multiple fights transpiring across the map right now. Gambit want to be at the top of this at the end. They don't have the most amazing positioning to play from, so they're going to make the smart move here to fall back and wait a few moments, see if they can get a capability to re-engage.
6 squads left in such a tiny circle as well. There's going to be a lot of stragglers around as well. Yeah, exactly. Nessie definitely with the favorable position here. This is where we saw Gambit the last time, but this is a lot more drastic. Last time it just being a truck, the difference here being an entire, what seemingly is a mountain that they have to climb. This is like 500 feet of elevation difference in between these two. So Nessie will be able to continue to rain down hell upon any group that decides to poke their little heads over any of these rocks. Gambit obviously still trying to find some safe space. They have some area to work with down low as well that they'll have to be worried about. But obviously having that Bloodhound, that's going to make this quite easy. But we're already going to have an engagement here from New as they'll actually hop inside of their own portal. Some damage coming through from them, especially from Zron and them down low here as they're trying to hold onto this building as long as possible. And the nades and everything else coming through as they're slowly but surely being dwindled down in health.
Both Gambit and Nessie now quite literally on the edge of their high ground positions. And the problem is Gambit does have POV onto Nessie. Mady's going to try to swing over and start putting some fire back on the Gambit to return the favor here. But we've also got a big fight going on down below. CMK engaged against our other team at the bottom of the cliff here, going to try and keep them in a bad position. Gambit still taking some heat as they're going to lose one of their players, and in fact may stay that way. Down to 2, there we go. That's going to be Hardeki getting full eliminated. As you can see, Leogri as well as as Artco. Not in the greatest positions here either, with virtually zero shields to play off of, trying their best to recover or find something to swap towards, but just not a lot of options being shown to them. Nessie still with the top-down POV here also. That's going to be JMW with free range on the charge rifle here to tear apart one of the last remaining members on Gambit, as they're going to lose their Gibby.
Oh, that's just so unfortunate for Gambit, but a solid finish so far. Haven't lost their last member, so obviously can still stay in it for the KPs, but you can see just how close this is as JMW gets the scan out. 7 hostiles in the area, and the charge rifle is just eating everyone up. Another shield break for the Bloodhound of, I believe, CMK, but still have that solid building control. It's going to be down to Nessie on this reposition of the circle to try and play this through that building. This is going to be the biggest problem. Yes, they've had the high ground for quite some time and they've been able to find the damage, but now they basically have to siege this building. Vito, as well as Gambit, actually still alive inside of here. It looks like Leo Gree actually able to get a solid reposition. Could possibly get some damage as well, but I don't believe he's actually in the building. I think he's actually below it, and yes, he is. Going to slide out here and actually ends up getting down by Fito, and that's going to be the last Gambit member done and dusted, as this last circle going to go down inside of the circle, or this last circle going to go down inside of the building, excuse me, as quite a few members still residing here.
Everybody's so close to each other here. This is going to turn into a very tense and very chaotic fight when it does finally explode. And it's going to be exploding in about 1 minute and 5 seconds here as we get down to that final circle closing. Fito trying to get this last KP that he can almost certainly guarantee for his team if they can just get close enough to be able to secure it for themselves. There is another member of this squad, though, trying to mess specifically with Fito, and he nearly loses his own life in the process of trying to claim it. In fact, they both end up going down there. Reply Totem, Amaz with the heroic play, trying to revive his teammate, but maybe realizing that that's not the best idea considering how many people are left inside of this game at this point. Fade goes away here. Maz going to be able to reposition off of that, and it actually works out great. Medkit now going to be presented to him. He'll be able to fully revive Nessie at full strength here, and more importantly, Mady with a PK to play off of here. This will be great for close range fights. His teammates, or his opponents, I should say, going to be forced to the outside of this building relatively soon. Also, we're going to see Amaz, though, not be able to make it any further. So that was the last straggler from that team now going down, and the defensive bombardment tearing one of our, the only other remaining squad left apart here. Nessie trying to win it out, and they're going to get the job done with that great top-down positioning, as well as the superior gunfire on the inside of that final fight. The PK, the EVAs, they were ready to tear it apart at close range, and they succeed in doing so as they take control of our second map.
What an amazing match from Nessie overall. I mean, even coming down to like halfway through the circles, like circle 3, I mean, we saw them every single step of the way, having amazing positioning and being able to consistently deal damage to these other squads. And even when it came down to having to deal with that building, they played it out perfectly. They knew the circle was going to play to their favor. So what do? They play the top of the building with the EVA, and they're able to get not only a lot of damage off, but they're able to hold on to that till the very dying moments where everyone has to flood outside. They're able to get the drop on the opposing squad, and they win because of that. So amazing stuff coming out from Nessie here in match 2.
Yeah, ratings are going to continue to shake up on the inside of that game. Our current top 2, or I guess you could say tied top 1 teams, both unfortunately not able to make it as far as they would have wanted to. Now, of course, not the end of the world. Gambit still ends up with around a top 5 finish and plenty of KPs, and at the same time, NCD managed to at least make it to the top 10. But with so many other teams, finally putting themselves up on the scoreboard here, Alliance making a good impact up until the end when they were knocked out by Nessie. Nessie themselves, of course, winning, and so many other squads getting up onto the board for the first time. It's only going to make things more exciting here, as that's going to add more winners and, more importantly, probably a new leader onto our points total here. We're going to get all that information in just a little bit, folks. So stick with us. Match 2 is now done. We're only a quarter of the way through the day here, though. We're looking to play out 8 games today. So stick with us, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with our third. And welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen, to the GLL Masters Spring. 2 games already gone, 2 different winners, 2 very different top packs as well there. So that means our scores are more than likely going to be very interesting to take a look at, as we'll have quite a few potential leaders. First up, though, let's take a look specifically at game 2 and see how our teams matched up there. Nessie obviously topping it out, not only in the placements department, but also with 8 KPs. They are by far going to be the leader out of that game with 20 points total compared to the next 2, both Reply Totem and CMK picking up 13 each.
Yeah, and Reply Totem and CMK coming through at a moment where it was desperately needed for both of them, and then running out of the top 5 also being Alliance and, well, our newly named, self-named squad, we'll just say that, of GYD. And they've actually been quite consistent throughout this as well, finding some KPs inside of the first one, but the second match just having a stronger finish. But it's nice to see Alliance up there either way. And here's our totals, folks, for what's happening currently inside of the EU. As we can see, NCD actually top of the heap currently, tied up with Gambit, 28 points.
So we're going to see both of those teams still remain in a bit of a dead heat here with 28 each. So actually very surprised we ended up with that, considering how differently both of those teams ended up finishing between games 1 and 2. But it ends up working out that way. Nessie, of course, right behind them now at 24 points. Only a 4-point difference between Nessie and the current 2 leaders. Reply Totem also staying very close to that pack as well, due to the 4th place finish they had in game number 1, able to survive with that last straggler up until the very end. CMK and Croissant also sneaking in here due to CMK's great performance in game 2 and Croissant's performance in game 1.
And you can see from our previous matchups, right, inside of our semifinals, a lot of our top-end squads not finishing as consistent as we had seen them prior, especially Alliance, Third Impact, Underrated, and T-Rex. Those are the top 2s from both of those, and both of them currently on the bottom half of the scoreboard. So we're looking to see if any of those squads, especially out of that bottom half, can try and rebound and get back to the top of this board. But it starts now, folks. Match 3 already on board as we're jumping right into the action.
All right, we're going to, of course, be following Nessie, our current champions from game 2. And we'll see if they're going to be able to keep up that pace early on, or whether they'll take a step back here and play a little bit more passively at the beginning of our 3rd game. Some other teams still needing to make an impact. I think the most notable one for the fans at home is going to be Alliance, who, like I said before, came into this tournament with a very confident stride, but so far have struggled to be able to make impact in these first 2 games. Plenty more opportunities to be able to make that up, however, so we will follow them very closely and see if they're going to be able to get that job done. Had a great potential in game 2. The circle seemed to be playing into them so well. They were able to gatekeep 2 to 3 teams out of position, but unfortunately were gatekept themselves when needing to move into that final circle, and were not able to successfully push past Nessie, who wiped them out right around the top 10, I believe.
All right, well, we'll see if they can try and right the ship inside of match 3. It all starts right now as Nessie will be starting things off with finding out the circle with the Bloodhound. To be expected, we see a lot of squads do this early on, just fly immediately to one of those recon beacons and try and get things set up. So let's see if any things have changed up inside of the landing pattern. It doesn't seem to have changed up too much. Looks like we might have some more heat as opposed to what we usually see around Skyhook.
Yeah, Skyhook's still going to be the hot zone, and I think that'll be the common trend, not only through today, but tomorrow as well. Both of the fragments are going to see teams landing in it, but with the separation between those 2 squads, unless they specifically want to fight each other, NCD and that red team in Fragment East, not more than likely going to end up colliding too heavily there. We still have the survey camp, though, a little bit of action there. Yoko and Ziki firing some shots off at each other, although Ziki doesn't seem to want a piece of that. Judging specifically from the way that tended to go in the last game there, TI probably doesn't want to mess around with that fight too much, at least not while Ziki is off on their own.
Well, it's funny you say that because it looks like the Russians of Ethics actually want this battle as they're pushing up from Epicenter to Survey Camp and surveying the land. I know that was a very long stretch, guys. I had to think really hard on that one. So either way, though, it looks like they want to at least just try and hold on to this area and see how Third Impact want to try and get out of Refinery. And this is a pretty solid area to do it from. Obviously, they're going to have to try and transition over center or any other place that actually has some consistent cover. And the issue is that there's a lot of open area in between that. And it looks like we're going to have that red squad that you were talking about before as well, possibly attacking our friends on GYD.
Yeah, that's who the red squad is.
Oh, the GYD. Oh, I see.
I think it is, anyway, if we just transition properly there. So GYD going to be working their way in. Like I said, that color, man, I couldn't read it on the mini map or the big map, I guess. But either way here, GYD
$500 monitor and can't even see the proper colors, John. Come on.
GYD swooping in pretty aggressively. Not necessarily the greatest engagement off rip, though. At least they're Gibby not able to get a damage that I think they would have been happy with off of the first peak. So gonna fall back here, take up some new positioning behind coverage and see if they can extend this fight at all. And if not, we'll more than likely see things calm down a little bit here. But they still have a chase. against one player. Oh, there's a player behind the rock here that I wasn't able to see until just now. So going to be able to try and force that player into the open. Once again, though, just not the damage coming through here. Good usage of the abilities from that other squad member on the other side of this fight. They're able to fade away, get out from a bad spot, and more importantly, regroup to now get ready for what is possibly going to be a full-on 3v3 fight if GYD want to press the issue.
And GYD playing this extremely patient as well. You can see the amount of open space in between these two. So when the commit comes through, there's going to be a lot of bullets flying as well. Already some shots flying through. Noski taking a lot of damage, and that's why the Gibby shield will be brought out. He needs to bat back up before they re-engage onto this, and it's going to be a full shield battery as well. Sonar detection out for the Bloodhound of the opposing squad, so they're going to have some solid information on this rotation. Yuki still trying to find this pinch, but it's actually going to be the aggressive push here from the opposing squad. Noski's been down, Delta fall as well. It's all down to Yuki, who has to try and win this out in a 1v2, using his teammates as a makeshift shield, and he's battling back and forth. Oh man, is he able to get through it? Orange down to the last wire here, able to finally clean it up as Yappers makes it through the fray. So very close there in the dying moments.
Yappers, great job fending off that aggression from GYD. And GYD, unfortunately, paying the price for their own strategy as they go down as the very first squad inside of this game here, trying to take a fight that, unfortunately, they were not capable to win there. So that's 3 KPs as well, going very early on and pretty safely over towards our new squad that we're watching right now. And it doesn't look like they're going to be immediately contested by anybody else. They have pretty much free reign over this entire quadrant of the map, and it will probably stay that way for some time unless TI decides to dive down on them from the north.
Yeah, this is super unfortunate for GYD as well, as it just seemed like they weren't exactly ready for the aggression from Yappers. They thought that it was their situation to play out, and they were ready for that. They'd already used the Gibby shield and everything else, so they're kind of low on utility, and that's exactly why we saw Yappers push forward there. There's no shields to try and save them from any of the things they're throwing at them, and as you can see with the lineup that they have, they can get quite aggressive with that, especially with that Bloodhound ult coming through, and that's exactly what we saw. PKM pushing forward and finding a lot of the damage, able to crack quite a few shields as well as get those downs that really led to the demise of GYD. But either way, though, they're able to get all the loot off those bodies and start pushing us through as they're going to take down that very first squad. And this circle already looking to be quite centered here, ending at the opening of Geyser as well as halfway through Sorting Factory.
Yeah, so probably going to be primarily Sorting Factory, if not the valley to the north of it there. So could be a pretty open circle here, which would be a change of pace from the way things have gone for the first 2 games here. It's been very centralized on like a single position of cover, or at least a couple of buildings on the inside of that final circle that the teams have had to vie for. The high ground position towards the end of game 2. That, to be fair, the high ground ended up getting eaten up, so that did not end up being the deciding factor by the end of it. Both the teams that were in those high ground positions went down, I think, outside of the top 3 also. So not able to make the impact there. It turned out being that little facility down below was the make or break point for quite a few of those teams. Going to reach a quiet point, though, since we do have a lot of squads already building up towards that Sorting Factory point with this explosive powder keg already starting to be built. No team wants to be the one to ignite it, so everybody is just respecting each other's distance for the time being.
And don't expect too much action to be going on here, as once again, John, we have Gambit with super solid positioning based off of the circle. Avant-Garde, as we jump on board with them, looks to be still near Epicenter, dealing some damage from the high ground, but they're going to reposition instead. Ghost seems to be very close to his next Evo shield here. Legitimately needs to tag up someone once to twice, and that's going to end up being a purple shield for them. So pretty solid as of right now for Avant-Garde, as they haven't been able to find the most consistent finishes today, and this could be the beginning of something beautiful for them.
Right on the tail of TI right now, although I'm not sure if they're aware of it or not yet. More than likely going to be able to see someone just by pure chance at a moment here. Balon and Zeki, as well as just Zaz, kind of running around trying to see if there's anything left to scavenge on the inside of the remaining fragments here of this facility, but obviously not going to be able to find much this late in the game itself. AVG not diving in on that as of yet, so more than likely did spot TI's position, or at a minimum is aware of it and is trying to respect it currently.
Okay, well, as we get an update on this circle and where our teams are currently positioned and moving, you can see we still have a couple of stragglers outside of the circle just trying to work their way in. Kick's still alive, which is a good thing. We haven't seen them find a solid finish as of just yet. Avant-Garde working their way in from Epicenter like we saw before, but that pop-off might actually start to happen here in Fragment East, with Third Impact actually rotating into them. So it looks like we could have some gatekeeping going on as well, as PKM and Yappers currently sitting at the door. doors of the Valley to Sorting Factory.
TI playing that gatekeep against AVG, and they're going to start the fight there. GG will be able to hear that up on the north side as they're blocking off the canyon to be able to access the final circle area leading down to Sorting Factory, as well as Geyser's positions here. Third Impact, of course, jumping into the fight initially, but taking quite a bit of heat on two of their players there, nearly losing both of the shields. In fact, Balon getting absolutely melted here by a long-range position. That's going to be Yappers, I believe, working their way up from the south. Yes, indeed, that is the case. That was the team we talked about before, who obviously heard this fight getting started, but didn't necessarily know what to do about it. Well, they've decided they're going to jump in, and so is AVG. Avantgarde now coming back to absolutely try and destroy TI here if they can get the jump on them, and they certainly have some great damage coming out for ZH to start this fight off. That's going to be a crack against one of their players too, Jazaz and Balon. In fact, both already down completely here, and the third probably not too far behind if the pressure is kept up.
Oh, and either way this breaks, this is so solid for Avantgarde. As we jump on board with Goes here, you can actually see he's got that EMP of Crypto as well. So it's going to be some shield breaks in the near future if it comes down to it. Plushka going to clean up one as well. As that's going to be Zeke going down, and I believe the full elimination of TI. Yep, third impact now gone, done and dusted here. But we still have a possible engagement from Avantgarde. Remember, Yapper is still up on the ridge and could actually engage at a moment's notice. Either way, though, they could also actually fall back and play that entrance point that we were talking about before to actually work their way into Sorting Factory. We'll have to see if Avantgarde can possibly get some insight as to what is going to go on with that with the Crypto in the future. But either way, though, Hack is going to move forward, ends up finding a lonely member of another squad as MPE will go down. Sharp to fall as well to Horizon on the other end of the map. So it seems like we are having some action go down for yet another squad here. As it's actually going to be Totem taking quite a bit of damage. It's all down to Savage, the last remaining one, as he tries to hit the dip and dash, but it's not good enough. Underrated, just better in the situation.
Yeah, that's going to be our current 4th place team, and Reply Totem is going to end up getting knocked out here in 17th place at the end of game number 3. So definitely not a winning combination for them, but with the points they've already gained here, hopefully better luck is going to be presented to them in the future. Underrated, still with some pressure against them, but it seems they're able to at least get out of dodge initially here to back up and re-heal. Their opponent's Alliance not immediately going to jump onto that, although Hackus is waiting and, more importantly, is ready to jump on that fight if the call is given from the leadership of Alliance. So just waiting for, I think, these other two players to get into position, and they'll be a little bit more comfortable maybe to at least play from the current position, if not outright try to engage, as unfortunately the opponent's on Underrated doesn't have the greatest amount of security of cover to play from there. But Alliance also needs to be cautious. You can see that other squad just to the left of them, another 50 meters out. So very dangerous fight where Alliance could very easily get third-partied if they're not cautious on getting out of there after they either win or lose the engagement. Avantgarde also in a potential dangerous spot here too. If they're not watching their flank, someone's about to run right up behind them.
Yeah, that's going to be OCN. Rotating in very late here as the circle's still closing, and there's the damage coming through onto Defaust, and luckily enough, it's actually going to be the Gibby, so solid reposition here, and Defaust's not even going to use the Gibby shield just yet, doesn't actually need it, just going to deal some damage back as this circle will push their targets closer and closer. This gatekeeping working out extremely well for them, and the amount of damage going to be coming through on this circle will definitely be noticeable as well for this squad. Defensive bombardment in, but it's not going to be Avantgarde's, it's going to be OCN's instead, as it's going to be the reposition for AVG here. They're just doing a very good job of rebounding in between these rocks and able to actually deal some consistent damage back. But oh no, as you said, Plushka in a very dangerous position as of right now. Going to get lit up and will have to not only shield bat, but get a med kit in there as well, as it seems like the damage is actually coming back onto AVG. This is going to be quite the break in between these two. More damage coming through onto AVG, as well as it seems to be yet another defensive bombardment raining in from somewhere. Who the hell knows? Could be Defaust or whatever, but it seems like we just had 2 of those pop off within the last 30 seconds. Avantgarde now on top of things as they're trying to pressure the squad that are actually inside of the circle.
Popping open the door here, immediately going to put pressure on the door. ZH will take the charge here, but has to fall back to Faust, also getting himself into a bad situation. That means ZH not really going to be able to utilize the drone at this point in time here. Has to focus on the fight as the Faust is out of it. Quickly just checking it every now and again to make sure that there's not going to be an immediate threat sent against them. Just without that opportunity to be able to get the EMP out here. They don't have their right to engage here. I don't even know if they actually have the EMP available. Plushka trying to flank around the side. Does find clear harbor for their team to try and utilize, but it doesn't stay clear for very long. Immediately, that team on the inside going to peek out from the other side of the door, start putting the pressure back onto Avangard here, prevent them from moving forward. Arcstar out, Gibby's shield down as well. The aggression comes in and it just tears apart this Octane. The two remaining Avangard players trying to play into this. Their own Gibby shield going to go down onto the ground here as they move forward and try to save their teammates. Should be able to accomplish that feat, but whether they'll survive this fight is still very much up in the air.
That's going to be the best way to pick up your teammate as well. No med kits needed. Just pick them up, just right from their back. That's all you need to do, Gibraltar. Just throw them back up there, get them right back into battle. And it seems like that battle is coming very quickly. NCD inside the building, fighting for their lives as of right now. Dolphin very low on HP. Nags consistently losing his shield, and that's going to, continue as the EMP comes through. So they'll have to rebat once again here. And you know what the beauty of this is? Don't forget that OCN is still on the collapse outside. At any moment in time, any of these squads can be eliminated. It seems like there's a target for everyone, and this is a target-rich environment as we see the amount of targets in front of Dolphin as Nag scans the area. NCD still trying to hold on to this building, and they're doing a very good job as of right now as things have reached a lull point, kind of slowing down as of late. They'll get the full bats back up. You thought the execute was coming through once we saw that EMP come through, but no one wanting to step foot inside of this building.
There's actually so many squads still up at this point, too. Coming down to nearly the end of round 3. Now, that squad just around the corner from NCD here is more than likely going to get pushed out by the circle. We'll have to see. Actually, no, they might end up being just safe enough around the corner there. I'm trying to read the mini-map right now, so we'll see it in a second, but I think they're going to end up making it here. So that's going to be a problem for NCD. They know they're there, so they're going to have to constantly watch their back until that team decides to push here. Because obviously they have no door to cover that flank. They decide to run in. There's nothing they can do to stop that. And they still have the presence of those other two squads bearing down on them as well. So very, very delicate position there for NCD. They have to be incredibly careful.
Absolutely. And speaking of delicate, that's not exactly what Croissant are looking at. And that would be more surgical. This looks more mallets, especially with the sonar blast coming through. They'll be able to find solo queue goats who have not had a good finish all day today. And speaking of not good things, this is not good positioning either, as they'll get sonar detected yet again here. And Shiv simply waiting with open arms for anyone to try and jump down this rock face and actually take a battle with them. And just remember, there's 16 squads still remaining around the entirety of this area, just playing on the outskirts of Geyser as well as Sorting Factory. And this final circle, I mean, oh my, probably the most minimal amount of cover that you can possibly get when it comes down to this.
Needless to say, that number of squads is not going to stay that way for very, very long here as that continues to build itself down and we get closer and closer to the end of the match. Gonna see, actually, it looks like pretty aggressive moves here from one of our teams. Kick is gonna dive right down onto another squad here. They're gonna force the engagement. Definitely not something that the other team would have wanted to play for. A third and I believe a fourth squad are going to get involved in this chaos as well. It's mainly at range, just trying to see what kind of chip damage they can get to level up their Evo shields more than anything else, but they'll take what they can get. As we are going to see both of those teams back away after a moment. There did lead to the full elimination of at least one squad, and we may not be done just yet here. Underrated, losing their Revenant, but still keeping two others alive.
Oh man, Underrated still inside of this on such a small circle. T-Rex battling back as well as Kearney has been downed, and it looks like he'll be dusted as well, down to the 2 people remaining for T-Rex, and that looks to change very quickly as well. Zerfer taking so much damage. Dippity's trying to come to his aid, but not able to do so in time. It's the down. Don't believe they'll be able to get the res either, as Dippity's just trying for it. The shield, trying to hold back all of the damage as Dippity's tries to shield back up. Might be able to pick up his friend now as well, though, as they've actually found some safe area underneath this building. As for K-Swinny and Dazo, though, and the rest of Underrated, it looks like they've actually got some pretty solid positioning. Yes, they've actually ended up losing their single man, but still able to stay on top of the last 2 remaining ones as they'll lose that Revenant. Still Gambit, actually. Haven't been on board with them for some time. They've actually got some really solid positioning once again here. This is something that's been consistent from them all day, as well as they have a Kraber yet again. Defensive bombardment out. The amount of people playing around this building right now is absolutely ridiculous. This EMP is about to hit around 9 targets if it is able to deal the damage, but no, it looks like it's gotten destroyed before the EMP was actually able to go off. No shield break here as the damage consistently coming through from all of these squads. Hakas with the solid reposition will get the shield up once again as Alliance is looking to try and find as many frags inside of this building as possible.
Good disengage from Alliance to get out of there before things got too hot. You gotta keep in mind there, Gambit still sitting in great terms with good positioning to play off of. Not only that, but having 2 gold shields at least to play off of here too, and they are using them, tearing apart these players on the outside of the doorway here. Has one at least down onto the ground. The doorway itself, as Hardecki tries to get some no-scope Kraber shots off here. That one not gonna ring true, unfortunately, but a couple other opportunities soon to probably evolve for this team over the next few minutes. Alliance still trying to put pressure on that bottom door, but realizing this is going to become futile very quickly, and more importantly, they could get flanked out here if they don't watch their positions. You can see those other squads in the distance that do have a current view on Alliance. Alliance, like we said, have really been struggling to try and maintain top positioning so far inside of this final here, and they need to change that fate soon, not later. So let's see if they can finally get this done. Like I said, a smart decision was made to back away from the fight against Gambit here. Look at the trap, though. The Kraber hits true. Hardecki's going to have to back up immediately after it, though, and now trade it out as unfortunately ammo going down to a minimum there. Can't continue to play into that. Fix of the Mastiff, but currently no shotgun ammo to play off of, so only has the 6 shots, in the chamber.
Well, the good news about that is that Mastiff hits so incredibly hard, especially if you're able to get that ADS there. Make that spray pattern a little bit easier on you as Alliance actually still hugged up underneath this building.
Left.
Oh, the fence. Battling back and forth in between this, able to get some damage off on the downed member, but an EMP coming through from the Crypto as Alliance will lose some shield. They're immediately going to bat back up, but it looks like they're stuck here, just trying to play in between the slats of the fence, not able to get the damage off that they necessarily want. And now IPN taking so much right now. So much, in fact, that Vafs will be forced to actually drop the Gibby shield. Alliance now looking for different shields and different mats inside of all of these death boxes outside, as they'll be able to hold on to this for the time being.
This is going to be such a chaotic final fight here. The door getting swung open. Alliance says we need some more territory. We cannot be stuck in this bottom partition when the circle starts to close. We will not be able to fight, guys. We have to push forward, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, Avant-Garde potentially going to suffer from the same fate. They are not going to have an easy way to get into this engagement either. They're trying to decide whether they want to wrap back around and go up towards the roof or try to jump on Alliance and flank them out here. There we go, Gambit. Now playing on the outside. They've taken Alliance's old position in back here, but no! Going to try and use the portal. Goes back upstairs there. Once again in Save Harbor. So Gambit are in good terms yet again there. Hardecki just a very aggressive play, and it nearly pans out as Alliance are still holding on to this tiny corner at the bottom of the last remaining building on the inside of the circle here. It's all going to close in on this here. Oh, pressure coming in though onto the Alliance members. That's going to drop their Bloodhound. IPN going out. Vapes not in the greatest position here either, as he only has about 20 HP remaining. Playing around the Gibby shield, should be able to get himself healed back up. Will need to be the same fate from Hakas. Vapes gets himself back, but IPN not going to be able to save himself. And now, at the same time, we're going to see Vapes go down. Hakas was just a tiny sliver of HP remaining. Oiling at the angle in time. No, his shield's back up again, and now is probably going to be able to get the med kit off as well. Hakas, incredible survival here, but how far can he push it?
Oh, Hakas, what a scary situation right now. This guy's playing survival horror underneath this building as this fence is holding back the fray of battle. Able to get that shield battery back up at NCD as we hop on board with them, have some trouble of their own. They're trying to make the play. The Gibby shield already down for Badoli as he'll need to shield back up, but he's already taken some damage onto that health bar as well. The HP needs to try and stay on top of that so he doesn't die, especially on this engage. The defensive bombardment comes through. You can see all of the positioning from these different squads, especially from Gambit, as they're able to stay on top of everyone, able to pounce at any moment in time. And 2 Gibby shields out on top of the rock face as well. It's damage back and forth in between the two. Who will come out on top? It looks to be Gambit as they clean things up. The last 2 remaining members from the opposing squad just down below them. Plushka, the only one left alive. Gambit trying to hunt him down, but oh no, it actually looks to be another squad across the way. Gambit actually able to secure it either way. Doesn't even matter, as you said, as Gambit will take match 3 as well, and that's going to be their second first place finish
Gambit just too strong, unfortunately, inside of that scenario. Once again, has the early positioning to play off of the final circle, and that time it's not a guaranteed victory from that positioning either. As we saw, had to make a move from that bunker they were playing for so long, fending off Alliance and possibly 2 other teams that were sitting right up on top of them that entire time they were playing to the inside of it. Still had the circle eventually closing in on them, had to dive in on those last couple of teams down on the cliff, still able to take out Alliance, I believe, as well as finish off the remaining stragglers sitting down below in the valley as well in order to clear out that game. Great stuff from Gambit. So unfortunate for Alliance, getting stuck in that corner, pinned by Avantgarde, as well as at least one other team trying so hard to make the effort needed to get to the inside, take the positioning away from Gambit, but just never really had that right of initiation, unfortunately, and crumbled under the pressure when that circle started to close.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest problem there for Alliance, was that it truly wasn't the one-on-one up against Gambit. We had Avantgarde stepping up and dealing damage through that fence consistently throughout that entire engagement. So that third party really having an effect on how they were able to play that situation. And a lot of that damage coming through and actually able to get some KPs for Avantgarde as well. And that's exactly why we see, groups try and do that kind of stuff where that third party comes through. They want to try and get those kills and get those points that are so very important. But either way, Gambit with some amazing defense of the building, able to translate that into a star-studded finish there, able to keep every single member alive.
All right, guys, so Gambit currently running with a 66% win rate. We're going to see if they can keep that up, as our 4th game is going to be coming up right after this short break here for the GLL Masters Spring. Welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen. We're very quickly approaching the halfway point for the day, as we're just about to start our 4th match here at the GLL Masters Spring for Europe. Our grand finals already well underway. Let's take a look at the scores from Game 3 and see, of course, where we sit overall in the standings too, meaning that Gambit more than likely going to be in control after finishing, I should say, yet another first place game there. 12 points going their way for the placement. 10 kills as well. Not the top dog in that game. Avantgarde actually beats them by 1 KP, but Avantgarde only getting 7 points from placement is going to leave them slightly behind Gambit overall in that game.
And Alliance actually finishing 7th here, which tells you the amount of squads that were inside of that circle in the dying moments. We didn't really get the full brunt of what was going on, as Alliance was stuck under the building. Gambit was holding on to that, as well as Avantgarde was kind of gatekeeping at the fence, dealing a lot of damage to Alliance, which ended up leading to their demise. But either way, you can't even highlight a singular player, a lone player on Gambit that has been, just the star player for this squad, because Gambit overall has just been so consistent through these first 3 games. Placing first inside of our match 1 and also first inside of match 3 with a solid finish inside of the second one. And that's why we see them at the top of the scoreboard right now, folks, with 50 points in total, finally breaking apart from NCD.
Yeah, NCD starting to fall behind slightly. More importantly, is their 2 Alliance, as well as Underrated, starting to slowly work their way up the rankings. Both of them now inside of that first column in the top 10. We've got a few of our other teams, their Reply Totem, still holding on right next to CMK. Avantgarde making some big waves on the scoreboard there too, as they're pushed up into 4th place after that last game with 27 points overall. Nessies, though, still in control of 3rd after their great Game 2 victory at 35 points.
Yeah, and Avantgarde been one of our most consistent fraggers as well. As you can see, 19 kills, the 3rd most right now inside of our lobby. But either way, as you were talking about before, we've had some breaks into the top 10 that are pretty notable, especially Alliance. But Underrated also cracking the top 10 as well, which is one of the squads that we were talking about quite often inside of our semifinals, as well as just having the most unique lineup for Legends when it comes down to it. No Gibraltar play here at all, John, and that's something that you never see.
No, definitely not the case here, especially when you consider the prevalence of it, as well as the fact that with so much Gibby and so many of those defensive bombardments out on the table, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain extent. If your circle ends up in like a field, just at the end of the game, and someone throws one of those downs and you don't have the bubble shield to deal with that, or some other way to mitigate that ult, it's probably not going to go too well for you. So a bit of a dangerous strategy being taken up there by that squad, but paying off in some respects, as we've seen from the score results there. As you guys can now see, though, we are getting into the 4th game, so let's take a look at the drop. Once again, of course, we'll start with Gambit, our current champions, see how they're going to rock their way down into their first zone here as they drop in once again.
Well, big shocker here. Gambit are going to be landing in the exact same spot that they have been landing throughout all of this. But that doesn't even matter anymore. Ethics already in the fight off rip as we're having a battle for epicenter. This is literally in the landing moments. No one even has a shield here. Air trying to battle out, and it looks like he's done so. Been able to down Jazaz here, but still some members of Third Impact laying around this area. He's going to try and get Cray up, but it's going to be a fake to try and see if he can pull somebody out. He'll get the KP here at a minimum. Tries to look to see if he can possibly get a shield or anything out of that crate, but nothing coming from the death box. It's all down to Balin, who actually's got a very, very nice shield coming into this. Some consistent damage. He'll get the break as well and starts to push with the Eva. This is going to be so difficult to try and battle out of. He gets the shield swap. Oh, this is on a nice edge in between these two. Balin as well as... Oh, the Eva finally gets air, and that's so unfortunate for Ethics as the Russians get knocked out early.
Balin, great control over the situation there. Obviously, losing his teammates isn't amazing. It's going to slow down their looting procedures quite a bit here, but they're well aware of that was a risk. I believe they were the aggressors in this fight also. TI generally not landing here from what I remember on the past couple of games, so trying to take a risk, and it seems like it's paid off there as they're able to knock out a squad first, open up not just this zone for the entire loot pool for them to be able to use, but also a pretty large portion of just this area of the map in general. They're going to have 2 to 3 other points of interest that they can more than likely just run out and get all of the loot pool of it for free if they want to spend time doing that.
So I'd just like to remind you guys of what happened inside of the last match for those that were not along with us. Third Impact usually ends up dropping at Refinery and Ethics inside of Epicenter. But the last map, we actually had Ethics rotate up to Survey Camp and oversee what was happening at Refinery. And then we actually saw Third Impact rotate down to Fragment East. And that's actually ended up being what led to their demise. So instead of dealing with that situation, having Ethics possibly rotate into them, they take the battle right off rip, and now they have control of Epicenter, Survey Camp, and Refinery. There's going to be no one around this area, and as soon as we get the map up, I wasn't even looking. I was looking over at Liquipedia. The entire area is clear, so that's the play right there for them. That's exactly why we see them push down into Epicenter, frag out onto the members of Ethics, and then go looting instead.
Taking a look at Kick here, or just taking some out-of-bound terrain for the time that they're allowed to use it. Seeing if anyone is going to be nearby for them to engage upon here. They do seem to be fully, armed and ready to fight to a certain extent there from the way that they're currently playing their position. So I believe they are trying to get a little bit more aggressive before the overall team bulk starts to build up too heavily towards the final circle. Unfortunately, I don't believe they're going to have anyone in the general vicinity to play off of at this immediate point in time. So their searches, okay, we're not going to lead to much initially, but hey, the search found them. Jakku there going to take just a little bit of heat from some opponents across the way. Nothing committing to this fight as of yet, though. Obviously, just that 1 to 2 shots is not really anything to discuss. So we'll see if they decide to jump on that fight or if we're going to try and play more normally here to rotate into the circle.
Yeah, it more often than not takes a little bit more of a rub in between two squads to have something pop off this early on, whether it be landing on top of each other or just going for buildings that are very close at very similar moments. But either way, these squads are going to want to try and find some consistent info as to where the opponent's squads are. But now it looks like GYD have some extremely strong positioning of our friends on NCD, as NCD have already used their Gibby shield. GYD positioning on top of the rail yard warehouse here, able to consistently deal some damage as they'll hop back in to one of these higher boxes. But you can see NCD already working the building as they're trying to find a way on up. Major pushers now also in the fray.
Major pushers, of course, trying to become a bit of a third element on the inside of this, but honestly might not want to jump into the fight itself just due to the risk that is involved in that. You can see only blue shields and, in fact, a white shield on their crypto there, so not the greatest capability to play into these fights. Obviously, a large majority of their opponents also dealing with similar circumstances, but at least some of them beginning to upgrade those or find purple shields. So a little bit of a dangerous fight to take at this point in time, especially from the low ground position that they're playing off of. As we move away from the train yard, though, head back over here towards Epicenter. Yappers is in the area, actually able to challenge TI if they can find him. In fact, we're going to see Rubik knock out Balin, or knock him down, I should say. Not fully eliminated just as of yet here, but the rest of the teammates from TI shouldn't be, I should say, too far behind. But from the looks of it, Balin just dying on his own over here. Teammates nowhere to be seen. Where are they? Oh, they're still in Epicenter here.
Oh, our poor friend Balin.
It's an unfortunate catch.
This kind of reminds me of our Apex games last night. You know, just Gibraltar out alone, dying. I don't know who that would be.
You mean like when you like zip-lined into the fight we were asking you to join for like 5 minutes and you just ignored us while talking to the other 10 people in our Discord channel? That give me play?
I mean, listen, man. I was just over at Grow Towers trying to find some ammo, and you guys needed some help. So I decided to zipline in and die instantaneously. I thought it was the best way to, you know, possibly enter the battle with some assistance.
A silver level game too, man. Come on.
I mean, listen, but you're not talking about all of the good Gibby plays I made last night. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I made some really, really solid plays. But either way, we're on board with T-Rex now. Let's talk about some games that aren't silver and some Apex Predators. And that one definitely being T-Rex. Was he talking mess to me? Is that what just happened?
A little bit.
Either way, it's okay. It's all right. So T-Rex actually hasn't been able to get too much done throughout any of these matches so far, and that looks to be happening again as Dippities will go down. Kearney taking quite a bit of damage. Zephyr trying to get the reposition as he'll be getting lit up as well. Looks like T-Rex just cannot find their footing so far.
They've taken some heat for sure, but Shiv going to come in for the assist here as Zip's able to fend off the last remaining opponent immediately in his vicinity. Doesn't mean he's safe just as of yet, though. Zephyr still around the corner there for T-Rex, and Shiv is well aware of that. Looks like he might be trying to get a little bit aggressive, or at least preparing to be, but the problem is you've got Gambit on the cliff side who's now going to be jumping into the fray here. Also, a possible three-way engagement going to explode. Hardeki taking a lot of heat early on here. Artico also getting brought down very, very low on the overall shield count here, able to quickly rebound from that, of course, here. We're going to see Beast the Hunt pop by Leogri. That's going to give him quite a bit better vision, especially for what is going to be a very particle-filled fight over these next few seconds. We've got the defensive bombardment going down. Rest of the team going to be able to move forward upon that ultimate and try to start wrapping and, more importantly, flanking their other opponents around the corner.
And Gambit, our shining star of consistency throughout these matches. They're doing it yet again. Solid positioning, using this Bloodhound to a T with all of the information. Solid reposition from Hardeki. They have everything inside of the cards right now for them, all except for the circle, in which they'll have to try and battle for. Hardeki with some good info on someone on top of the ridge as well, as they need to get these bats back up on these shields. Make this reposition a little bit easier for them, as they won't be taking as much damage onto their actual health bar, but obviously the circle going to continue to tick away onto them. Shiv possibly having an engagement here, but no, just going to be repositioning as an entirety here for the squad, as they'll soon need to actually get inside of this circle as well. Gambit actually with some solid positioning, but they'll be able to gatekeep now as damage continuing to be dealt to this opposing squad.
Yeah, once again, high ground advantage going to go over to Gambit here as well. You do still have Zephyr way off in the distance on the corner, but he might honestly just be the lone remaining player from T-Rex at this point, so probably not going to be too keen to try to jump into any sort of 1v3 anytime soon, especially when there's a whole other squad right on the other side of it. Both DivQ as well as Shiv taking a lot of damage here, not just from the circle, but also from Gambit themselves, who, as Stokes has mentioned, was fully gatekeeping this position here. They're not going to let them out. They want the 3 KPs if they're going to get the opportunity to get them. They're probably not going to mind taking those shields off of them as well there. But Zephyr is running the corner here, tries to run in, gets aggressive on this fight, nearly loses his life in the process, though. Literally down to 1 HP here, so he's going to have to keep that train moving if he wants to survive. Oh, man, Hardeki almost having the finishing blow there a couple seconds ago, but going to have to keep on hunting.
Well, the hunt seems to have worked out for him. He'll get some damage off onto that last remaining member there, but not enough to even crack the shield. So they're going to go for the reposition instead. But as we hop on board with Avantgarde, they're inside of their own engagement. Eva out, but oh no, it's going to be a down here as Goes trying to refrag here, but not able to do so. Kick fully eliminating AVG, and that's not something that I was exactly expecting. We haven't seen Kick find too much solid play just yet, but oh no, that seems to be changing as they've eliminated a squad. There's another squad in for the third party, and they're immediately going to send Denze to his demise. It's the reposition now for them, though. It's the Gibby ults down. They're going to pop the shield as well as Yappers goes for the chase, but they're going to use the opposing shield to their advantage and get aggressive very early on here. The chase continues as Yappers are on the tailcoats.
I know they've got it down at just the Gibby, and obviously they know the Gibby is going to be the easiest target to isolate, so Renje going to continue to chase that down here as they restrict the Gibby to nothing to work with. Unfortunately, no cover to play off of at all. Rubik finishes it off, and we'll see the elimination of Kick go down there. They'll go out in 16th place. Unfortunately, that third party getting finished off by Yappers, leading to the elimination of them. Some great fights going out just before that, though, for Kick. Specifically, their Crypto doing some fantastic work with the ropes on the inside of that building in order to win out the definitive fight, in order for them to clear the first squad they did. Unfortunately, just not getting out of that position in time. They do get jumped on for third party.
Yeah, as a caster, you're never allowed to get happy for a team because as soon as you do, they're probably going to end up dead. That caster's
Gonna be our anyway.
Always coming through, man. Always coming through. But either way, we're jumping back on board with Alliance as they found yet another engagement. Arcstar's outdoing a lot of damage and restricting the movement of that Octane. He won't be able to escape, and since the shield's broken, Hackus moves forward and immediately decimates him. That's going to be another KP going into the back pocket, and the very first one for Hackus inside of this game. Alliance starting to push forward now as they'll use the Gibraltar shield for the death box. They'll just grab some mats and actually start to slow this down just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely coming down to a bit of a tepid point in the matchup here where teams really need to start being careful with their positioning and engagement choice, but at least Alliance will thrive upon one more fight that they get to take for themselves here. DZW and a few other players getting eliminated by them as they pick up a few more KPs for themselves, and as well another full squad wipe. I believe we go down to 15 now due to that good aggressive play coming out from Alliance.
Okay, so Alliance looking for another consistent finish here. This could be their best one as well, but as we look across the team tracker, you guys can still see that T-Rex is lying about, actually to the top right of your screen here. Zephyr trying to work his way back in, and obviously being one of the best teams when it came to that semifinals, but so far through all of these matches, they just have not been able to find these finishes like they wanted to. And to make matters even worse for Zephyr, he's actually got a flank coming in very soon from Survey Camp.
Yeah, Zephyr actually very surprised that he still managed to stay alive this entire time, considering Gambit has been fully aware of this person. Now, here's the other problem, too. You've got the third impact wrap coming in against him in a second here if they're not cautious about it. Should be able to spot this player out and, more importantly, take this player down.
Oh, my God.
Not going to be going for it just as of yet. These two moving together here. Trying to play it off.
They're even here.
It's really weird they don't jump on that immediately, but either way, we're going to see Gambit continue to fire off the pop shots now that they have positional advantage here. Solo Q Goats hunting down one player also. As we go back to Shiv Squad for just a moment there, DiffQ also hunting down his target, also very hard to do on the inside of a city, though, as we can see. Man, is this still the T-Rex player doing? I think it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, there we go. Man, that dude ran past like 3 squads before finally getting eliminated. I was sitting there, I was a little hesitant in the cast because I was like, man, are we still following Zephyr? And indeed we were. Zephyr really going for the marathon and trying to make it as far to that game as possible, but ultimately still going to see T-Rex get knocked out in 15th place. So yeah, good attempt from Zephyr, but just not making enough there at the end of the day.
Zephyr was looking like he was playing basketball or something else, so the amount of ankles he was breaking right there. He was just... Oh, that movement, so insane. And now Gambit bearing down on yet another squad, but it looks to be, I believe, the last one here for TI. Nope, not yet, actually. Ziki will go down, but it seems like some third impact members still lying about somewhere as... Sadly, they will leave their member all alone down low, and that gives Gambit free reign over that situation. Balin as well as Jazaz on top of the roof, but the damage still coming through from these grenades as Balin will lose his entire shield. But Gambit's not going to hop on top of this just yet. Instead, it'll be the reposition here for third impact as they're trying to get away from this, but that massive shield obviously being a big highlighter as to where third impact are currently rotating to. Gambit hot on their trail as well, and they have the Bloodhound that's going to make this all the more damning if he's able to get on top of them.
Gambit doing a great work of keeping the pressure up. Artico specifically there trying to do something with the G7, but the G7 unfortunately shots just not hitting in the way that Artico needs them to under this current scenario. So they will take up position at this cutoff in between the canyons and probably just camp out here for the foreseeable future. GYD, though, a little bit of a different story. In fact, the opposite story is they're getting quite aggressive, taking roof control of one of their opponent's buildings, trying to make sure they're not shuffling to the outside. They're definitely not. In fact, they've come up to the roof. They are ready for this challenge here on the inside of the bubble. Of course, they're going to remain safe, but at the same time, GYD, specifically the G part of that, they're having to try and leap into the engagement, getting some good damage, but having to fall back. And look at this. They end up with a tiny corner of the building to play off of their opponent's However, get the same exact benefit here. That's actually crazy. That's considered inside the circle because Gibby has his full shoulder peeking out at that point, but somehow the game's still going to count that as being on the inside. So they work with whatever they can get under this situation, as they're going to have to still funnel out of here in just a moment. And I'm sure that the Wraith is already working on that.
It's like the guy that shovels coal on the train. You know what I mean? Half of your body's frozen and half of your body's on fire all at the same time. And that's what Rubik's going through right now, is they're trying to get the reposition for the portal for him to get him out. We'll have to see how that works out for him. But hopping on board with Alliance, looks like we got a new kill leader here, as Hackus is going absolutely nucleosis. 5 kills right now, looking for the 6, but he'll get the assist instead. Alliance finally finding their stride here in match 4.
Yeah, Alliance finally making that big impact, specifically on the KP department that unfortunately we haven't been able to see out of them just as of yet, save for that crazy game where they were stuck on the inside of that facility fighting Gambit for who knows how long. GYD finally finding their targets there, as Rubik, Surdell, all going to go down. Surdell, of course, will get revived as he's a member of GYD, but other than that, the full squad wipe coming out in their favor. Look at this engagement from Solo Q. Goats, though, leaping in the Arc Star, sticking it to their opponents, jumping in right behind the Gibby, still having no idea about this engagement either. Beautifully played by the Solo Q. Goats. That's already going to be GYD getting finished off by them and looking for more as well. That's the last member going down from GYD, as they're fully knocked out by a very quick jump in on the fight there from Solo Q Goats.
And for such a quiet start from these guys, a hell of an opening here is, Diff might actually have yet another engagement. Arcstar down. He's got the thermal out to try and create some space, and he'll attempt to do so as Gambit bearing down on the situation, but they'll back up immediately. This is something that we've been seeing in stark contrast to these other squads. Gambit not really trying to push the envelope unless they have a very advantageous position. Backing up yet again here, Articio trying to hold the gates down as they'll end up popping that shield. EMPs through. Articio taking so much damage, he'll have to reposition through the through Gambit's telly here. But no, Articio actually ends up going down instead. You thought he had it, able to get his shields back up and online, but not able to do so. Instead, Leogree as well as Hardeki, the last 2 remaining members, still alive and still breathing. Obviously, Articio is still breathing, but they'll have to pick him back up. They'll reposition for the shield play here as Leogi trying to get the shield back up online, but it's actually Reply Totem that have actually gathered some positioning down low here, able to get some solid damage off, but nothing just yet as to a finisher. Just able to get these shield bats back online and actually play out for another engagement.
So switching over, of course, to our new squad as we take a look at them. There's going to be a lot of pressure boiling onto Alliance right now. Hakis at the edge of that fight, still trying to fend it off, though, as we're now down to the top 6. So many squads have died just in these last few minutes, and it's already brought us down to the final few here. Alliance trying to hold on. We can see both IPN as well as Hakis holding on the back line there. Him as well. Amaz going for the res on one of their own teammates. Ooh, not looking good for Alliance here. Like we were talking about, IPN in a down state. In fact, they're Gibby completely out of the fight right now. That's Vase that's been eliminated here. Should be able to get Bloodhound back in the engagement. That's exactly what they're going to work on right now. So Hakis will be able to bring that back up. Keep them in good straits. They will take a little bit of the circle damage there for some reason as they're doing so, but now we're gonna have to be careful here. Hakis right next to their team. They have no idea that they're sitting next to them though, but the problem is Hakis ruins the element of surprise. They're not aware of it. I think they know that they're gonna be low here too and only have 2 players to play off, so they dive on top of them. Immediately that Bloodhound gets re-down, and it's not too much longer before Hakis falls as well. Alliance now out. We're down to the top 5. Nessie just barely surviving that engagement with them here. Graceful is still in a down state, but is currently worked on being revived here. JMW going to be able to bring him back in, and they should have that portal to be able to use to hop out of here. We'll see if it's going to keep them safe or not, though. Matey still in a bad spot on the other side of the portal. Also, they've already re-lost Graceful. Macy goes down in that situation as well. Only one still remaining here for Nessie to play off of.
Oh man, and Unrated are still here as well. That's the squad that we were talking about that doesn't run a Gibby. They're not going to need that inside an open space like this. Obviously, the other Gibby shields they'll be allowed to work with, but looks like we're going to have Shiv and the rest of Solo Q Goats go down pretty early on here inside of these dying moments. CMK, though, still alive. Our Russian squad, we haven't been on board with them too much throughout match 4, but they're here alive and well. And not only that, but they also have a Kraber with a single shot that could be the difference maker going into these last 3 squads. Remember, folks, this sniper, so damaging when it comes down to it. More than likely a damning call as to whoever it tags up. Great shield here for the lower positioning for that opposing squad. Remember, we still have underrated on the high ground. We saw them playing the top of those gas tanks, or whatever you want to call them, up here on the ridge. We'll have to see if they're able to hold on to that positioning as that last circle going to be closing in here in about 40 seconds. And that's why we see the early engagements already going through. A down Bloodhound, a broken shield, and the opposing squad from CMK. Worse for wear as of right now. They need to get these batteries back online, but it looks like the damage is going to be too much coming through as of right now.
A PK doing some damage at range, still do the choke attachment. You can see underrated, ready to jump into this fight too. They've got a very aggressive engagement-focused composition here too, which is going to be perfect for the final fight that I'm sure is brewing up at any moment. Triple take also available to them, so they have no problem playing it at range, waiting this one out. Specifically, K-Swinny going to be okay upon that. The silence goes out from the Revenant, blocking off, hopefully, any re-engage, but they are going to see some pressure from their left side here. Trying to be cautious of that, as the team on the other side of this storage box could jump on them at any time, too. And, of course, they're well aware of that. Now getting ready for the pressure to work its way out. That push finally going to come out into the open. Underrated, very much seeming ready for that. The boost up coming in for the underrated squad. At the same time, also going to see the pull come in to separate the third remaining squad in this engagement.
Oh, my God.
Hopefully the defensive bombardment work its way out. That's going to force K-Swinny out of position. Should do the rest of unrated as well. But no, they're taking some heat from this. They've got to be careful. That bombardment, this is the one thing that would kill them because they didn't bring the Gibby, and they don't have any other way to mitigate it. The pressure's coming back in. It's CMK on the other side of this fight here, and they may be able to clean it up. Some serious damage going in. Sonya will be lost. The jump up from the other side here, but they're chasing that player up to the top. He's airstrafing them, out of the way, but it doesn't matter. CMK still comes out on top as they claim our 4th match.
Oh, CMK by the skin of their teeth there at the last moment, a single pellet hitting Horizon, and they're able to claim the win because of that. But it wasn't even really that. I mean, it was the Gibraltar crypto combo that was able to win them out inside of that engagement. We saw underrated, so strong in their positioning, able to use the Horizon damn near perfectly with the raise up into the ult, where they're able to use that black hole and really affect the positioning of CMK. But it didn't matter when it came through with the EMP as well as the defensive bombardment. It was just too much damage dealt to not only the shields, but just those health bars overall. And that's why CMK was able to overwhelm them from that position. But what a great match to seal out this halfway point.
I mean, we had the aggressive engagements right from the beginning for TI as well. They jumped into one of their opponents' initial landing spots there and made things very chaotic right from the beginning of it. I mean, that trend continued. So many more squads dying early this time, to be fair, but led to a lot more, I think, fair fights between quite a few of our teams and good fights on top of that here. You can see the fight with, I believe that was Alliance getting knocked out in that situation here, but we can see CMK with the lineup using that Kraber so well also in order to really do some serious damage and set their opponents up for unsuccessful fights at the end of this game.
Wow, I mean, overall, match 4, I think this is probably the most chaotic one that we've had so far. Obviously, we did have some crazy stuff happen inside of, I believe, match 2, where, yeah, that's what I was saying, a singular pellet hitting him at the last second. Like, it was very, very scary when it came down there, mainly because CMK, very minimal shields, very minimal health bar there. So no ammo, obviously, more than likely leads to their fall as well. So either way, that was just like on a knife's edge when it came down to it in those 9 moments. But either way, some very, very fun matches so far, and match 4, not a big difference at all. We'll be right back, folks, with match 5 up on the docket next. We'll see you in a few.
And we're back once again, ladies and gentlemen, ready to jump into yet another game here at the World's Edge, and more importantly, here at the GLL Masters Spring European Finals. Let's take a look at those scores, see where we are standing as CMK Chimka just took control of that first, or their personal first game there in match number 4. But as well, definitely not the first time they've been able to rack up some points. We've been seeing them show up in the top 4, top 5 of quite a few of these other games here overall, though, with 10 kills, by far the leader there. The next highest team only at 6. They net themselves 22 points out of that game.
Yeah, a huge margin there for CMK. And I'll be honest, I'm not even going to attempt to try and say that name. But either way, they had a really strong showing there, especially inside of the dying moments where they were able to get off quite a bit of damage, able to secure those last couple of frags, especially ending in such a strange fashion with that single pellet, able to take down the last member of the opposing squad. But either way, this is how things have settled after the dust was up in the air. CMK finally making the way into the top 3. They'll take over Nessie's position at second, as well as Gambit still holding on to that first place area, but they haven't been doing it through kills. It's been through placements. As NCD, excuse me, still at the top of the heap in that inside of that regard.
Keeping our eyes at that lower portion of the first column there too. Alliance and Underrated still very slowly creeping their way up the ranking pool there. They were in the bottom of the pack in our first couple of games here. We've seen them break into the top 10, and now they're starting to make progress on moving slowly up into the top 5 here. Underrated slowly overtaking the Alliance, at least for the time being, but only by a 2-point margin. Avant-Garde falling off slightly from their previous performance as well, as they were in 4th place. Nessie still holding on to 3rd due to their prevalence in that previous game, as well as the fact that we see NCD still with a pretty rock solid performance in a lot of these games. They're still holding on to a 4th place position also.
Yeah, I honestly think that the thing to talk about the most through our first half of the day here so far has definitely got to be T-Rex and how they just have not been able to find any wins, as well as not very many kills coming through any of those previous matches. It's been really difficult for them to get anything done, not even cracking the bottom half of the scoreboard, really, or the bottom half, if we're going to put it that way, right? Where they're actually at the top of that second half. Either way, as confusing as I can possibly get with the scoreboard, we're going to be jumping right into match 5, folks. Hopefully T-Rex having a rebound, but we're going to be on board with CMK to get us started.
It's unfortunate, the fate of T-Rex here so far, right? Because they obviously managed to come in with a booming performance in the semifinals, but so far been unable to repeat that. Now, the fact that they've been unable to perform here does align more with the results we've been seeing out of them historically. However, like I said, I was kind of hoping to see something more out of them, considering the fact that they did so well in the semifinals. But unfortunately, we just haven't seen that translate too well into the finals as of yet. But I've got hope. We'll hold on to that for now.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I'm really happy that you talked about that, because something that we had inside of our notes is that they were able to have an average of 5 placement points per game, as well as 5.5 KPs per map as well.
Like almost an average of like a 4th place finish, if I remember the point totals correctly.
Yeah. And the difficult thing about that is like the shining thing of consistency, right? That's what we talk about throughout, or what we've talked about throughout all of today when it comes to Apex, is that you're not looking for that one beautiful match where you're able to just get the victory, you get a bunch of KPs, and then you win the entire thing because of that. That's not going to happen. You're looking for those consistent finishes, looking for all of the top 5s that you can possibly muster, and it just hasn't come through for T-Rex yet. And as of right now, with their position on the scoreboard, it's seemingly now or never. They really need to get the ball rolling, because this is match 5 as of right now.
Well, enough talk about them. We'll see what else is going on across the map. More importantly, if we're going to see any early engagements, we still have that skyhook possible war zone always kind of broiling at the beginning of each game. But I'll be honest, we've actually very rarely seen that come to fruition immediately. Only about like half of our games we've seen these guys immediately jump on each other. But it seems like we've got it set up. You know, we've got 2 teams. Each one's got a building. You couldn't ask for better conditions here. It's more just about if either one of these teams wants to take the risk on the full-on push here, which there we go. We do see one team wanting to take that risk. It's going to be the solo queue gods as they work their solo queue goats, excuse me, as they work their way into this engagement here, jumping in off of the jump pad in order to get the initiation here. Already taking control of the top 2 floors, looking to go further than that too here. Some great zone control being exercised with the nades being thrown out by the Octane. We're going to see if they can push it further. They do end up falling back to the top of the roof, but that's still the advantageous position in this fight here. We'll have to see if Kick want to try and go back up to the top to challenge them at all, or if they'll look to just retreat from this position at some point in the future.
Yeah, this is an amazing push here by solo queue goats, but as you said, Kick doing a very good job of backing off and not giving up too much early on here. Remember, they're looking for some solid finishes, and Kick have not exactly had the greatest day so far. Obviously, solo queue goats trying to make up for a lot of mishaps that happened inside of these first matches, and these KPs would be really well received by a lot of their fans, I'm assuming, if that ended up going off. But either way, Kick now trying to figure out exactly what's going on around this building, but no, they're not even going to use that. Instead, it's the EMP immediately, and as as you can see, Solo Q Goats not wanting to deal with that. They knew the jig was up as soon as that EMP went off, and they'll immediately go for the reposition. They're going to Trials instead as they'll get back on top of those shields.
Yeah, successfully retreating, though, not going to get immediately chased by any of the members on kick. Well, not immediately, I should say, but they are pretty close behind. We can see Denze, as well as Sabak, already on the interior door. The whole squad, in fact, on the interior door of Trials here, ready to move in and challenge the Solo Q Goats once again. How dare you take our building? We're going to punch you in the face for that as they move in, though. Unfortunately, we are going to see that Bloodhound go down, so the Solo Q Goats already in a rough position as they've lost Shiv, Zippeth, and Diff, now trying to make up the difference here. Nearly getting it done. There you go. Nice job there by Diff specifically, turning it around, picking up all 3 of those finishing kills, and gloating about it a little bit too, as we get some spam going into the death boxes. They're going to be able to bring Shiv back up pretty easily, get themselves all revived, and I believe they'll be relatively safe for the future here.
Well, Zippeth and Shivs, I bet if those boxes had feelings, they'd be very angry right now. But either way, it looks like, oh no, John, Avangard, right outside Trials.
I'm sorry.
They're slipping in right now. It's the caster's curse yet again, and it looks like the Trials have just began for Avangard as some damage goes off onto them. Plushka not dealing enough, really not at all, and you know, to actually assist them with taking over Trials. And here's the other problem I was trying to get at, and is to why I stuttered. GYD are actually outside the door right now. I assumed that things were going to be popping off as they're actually stuck inside of this hallway. GYD outside, Solo Q Goats inside, and then we got a nice little sandwich going on in between these two. So we'll see if Solo Q Goats can push out and possibly deal the damage to Avangard. Which one of these squads will push forward first, as we have this nice sandwich going on in between these two. Looks like a reposition here from Avangard as they'll dismiss themselves and actually end up trying to get to the top of this. It's actually, no, this is going to be GYD, as they'll actually end up scaling down this side of the mountain.
Avangard, I believe, does retreat from their position since they're allowed out by GYD. GYD realizes that it's just going to be a waiting game if they continue to hold that door, so they choose not to waste a bunch of time there. And not only are they going to fall back, but Avangard will end up working their way into the north side of Skyhook ultimately, too. So that's going to reopen Solo Q Goats' capability to clear out Trials, get all the loot that comes with that. And finally, the saga of the Trials fight here at the beginning of our 5th game is going to come to a close there, with ultimately the Solo Q Goats coming out on top. Just that one squad wipe, despite the fact we had 5 squads in the engagement over the course of that fight there. Only one of them ends up getting wiped.
Well, if it's a saga, when does Avangard strike back?
I don't know. Maybe like 10 minutes, I guess.
Somebody's going to proclaim that somebody's their father or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So, gonna clear out the AI real quick here, like I said, to be able to get the loot to finish the actual Trials on the inside of this zone here. And then we'll see where the Solo Q Goats want to take their journey from here.
Well, it looks like they're going to be the journeyman of this match here, as they're starting well outside the circle up at Trials. But the good news is that they'll be making it away with quite the heap of loot. That'll be very assisting and making their way actually into the circle, as well as being quite damaging inside of these engagements. The biggest thing here obviously being those shield batteries, as well as meds in general, is staying on top of that, making sure that you can take fights over and over again. Having one shield battery and a couple of cells isn't really going to do all that much for you. You want to try and keep as many of those in your inventory as possible. And as of right now, reaching a lull point here inside of the match. Only 18 squads remaining, so still well at the top of the heap here. So we're working our way on through this. And currently at Skyhook is JYD, as they're seeing every single one of these squads rotating away from the circle towards them. Yuki going to use a tactical ability, push up someone, try and get some insight as to what is going on for the repositions from these squads. GYD doing a very good job of gatekeeping as of right now, just these shots not landing.
Yeah, Noski unfortunately not able to make the impact on that boost up there, and in fact taking a lot of heat himself. Still trying to deal it on the cross here. The Volt finding some serious impact for Sir Del as they continue to try and stunt the efforts of this squad that is looking to work its way past them. Are trying to pinch them out here, and it looks like their opponents are going to stop, if not momentarily, to be ready for this fight. There's the EMP working its way out, though. No way to stop it, unfortunately, as the drone is going to be hitting, and that is going to lead to the elimination, or at least the knock going out against their... Oh, no. More pressure building up on the inside here, too. Avangard thriving under the pressure that they're putting out against GYD right now. Beautifully done by Avangard to not only be the defender in that situation, but to be able to turn it around flawlessly. and just execute GYD.
Well, GYD going by the wayside, although that gravity lift did look to be promising.
No. Here comes solo queue again.
It looks like we're going to have the reposition from solo queue, as you said, and it's on to Avant-Garde. It looks like we are indeed going to get the Empire Strikes back here, John, as it all starts inside of Skyhook. DeFaust and the rest of the Avant-Garde squad currently on the second level. Obviously, solo queue goats, or at least Diff, on the bottom as of right now. Avant-Garde trying to hold on to this building as starkly as possible, but they'll have to stay on top of their mats in order to do so, and that's why we see them searching through the death boxes, just trying to find some more so they can try and stay consistent inside of these fights. Already having a reposition though here from solo queue goats is they'll move past the opposing building and actually out and into the open, so they no longer want this battle. We'll have to revisit this later on if we ever actually do so.
Avant-Garde backing away, though, more than likely going to reroute around that big edge of Skyhook or work their way through the connecting tunnel down below. That'll obviously be a pretty massive choke point and a slight risk if they decide to go that way. But for the solo queue goats working their way, pretty much the opposite. They're going to head straight out to the east and head away from Avant-Garde. So more than likely not going to see those two teams collide for some time, if not for the rest of this match. Alliance, in the meantime, in a slight engagement themselves here, as they try to take up good positioning in order to get aggressive, specifically Wraith to be able to move in, as Hakis is leading the charge for this team, but you need to be careful that drone spotting him out as he gets just a tad too close. No immediate re-aggress coming out from the other side of it, however, so going to remain safe for now, as we see T-Rex, the most recent team to get knocked out just after GYD was eliminated in that last fight. Also see a few other teams have been eliminated. Like we said, we saw Kick get knocked out first due to that very early fight. Yappers also going down, as well as OCN.
It's just such an unfortunate series here for T-Rex so far, and as you said, getting knocked out really early on, and I don't think that they got a KP either. So this is going to be, well, giving them 0 points in the grand scheme of things, and that's the biggest issue for them as of right now, is they'll sit the bench out for the rest of this one. But as we're getting an update on the circle here, folks, you can see things have begun to break below Skyhook, a little bit to the left of Fragment West here. So gonna have a pretty consistent circle, obviously not going to be the strongest cover, but that hasn't been the worst case scenario for a lot of these squads. Most of them are running those gibbies, all except for our outlier there being underrated, which we've been seeing them find some consistent finishes as well. So shouldn't be the largest deal coming down to it. The thing to be really concerned about for quite a few of these squads has got to be the gatekeeping going on. You can see a lot of these squads still holding on to the outskirts of this circle as it's closing in.
Coming down to the wire for a couple of these teams is not only do they need to move out of the current circle, but they need to be ready to fight people that are quite literally on the border the second they get out of it here. So going to be a really tough time for the solo queue goats, as well as a couple other squads still straggling on the outside of the ring right now, trying to work their way in. Avant-Garde, one of those, but has at least secured positioning inside of the new circle, whereas the solo queue goats have not been able to do that. We've been following kind of the saga of Skyhook this entire game, so just keeping you guys updated on that, as the solo queue goats may find themselves pinched out in a moment here as they try to swing down into good positioning against this purple squad just under them.
I don't know if the purple squad exactly knows that they're there either. See how that ends up going, but that is going to be the circle as of right now. It's going to be Gambit, actually. Yeah, as you said, Gambit holding on to this building as solo queue goats will be approaching from the outside, slowly but surely here. No shots off just yet, just obviously taking some damage from that circle. That's why you're going to see the names consistently blink, but Gambit's ready for it. They saw them on the entry, and that's going to be an immediate shield pop here as solo queue goats already looking worse for wear. They will have the reposition here by Diff. He'll get some solid damage off inside of the building, but oh no, it looks like the defensive bombardment's already out, and it's dealing so much damage right now to this squad. Zippeth actually been down. Shiv soon to follow if this continues.
Oh no.
The damage, but no, it's actually onto the Octane first. And oh no, the Bloodhound will actually get him up, but Gambit, they're just too damn clean when it comes down to it, folks. Gambit not even taking any damage. It's down to perfect utility usage as well as some consistent damage through the rifles to clean up solo queue goats. And they're already having their next target and their marks.
So unfortunate for Diff Q there too, because he had that great position on the rooftop, and he could actually just sit there and eat the defensive bombardment because he had the gold shield and obviously plenty of mats to be able to use past that point. Problem is this other team across the way firing off that one fatal shot from a charge rifle that just absolutely melted Diff's HP and forced him down into the engagement versus Gambit before he was even ready to, re-engage there. No shields to play off of, very little HP as well, led to a quick elimination of him. One other teammate had already gone down for them. That was the bitter end, unfortunately. So not going to be the way that Solo Q Goats would have wanted to end that one, but unfortunately it is the way that they get knocked out here, as Gambit are going to be able to take control of them in this situation. We'll switch over to Major Pushers, who still taking up position here inside of the train yard, have a potential fight boiling against another team sitting just below them right now.
Major Pushers with a high ground obviously can translate this into something, but it looks like, oh no, Horizon and the rest of Underrated now with some poor positioning over at Meltdown. They're currently in a battle of their own that seems to be a battle on multiple fronts. You can see some damage coming in from Train Yard as well as across the way inside of Meltdown. Multiple of these rooms being occupied as well currently, so we'll have to see if the maids try and stop by, maybe clean that place up a little bit later on, but more than likely do not disturb on the outside of that one. The reposition now coming through for Underrated is, well, we will have some utility flung across, but it's not going to do anything. The Revenant swinging wide with the cursed ball there.
Also going to see Nessie work their way into this fight potentially too, but we'll come back to it in a little bit as we're back on Gambit for a moment, still in that engagement against the third party that actually contributed to the knockout of Solo Q Goats a few moments ago. Good defensive bombardment should really put the pressure on the remaining players down below, or more importantly, force Gambit out, which I believe was used by the defensive team in that scenario here. Third Impact also sneaking their way into this also here. Got a Kraber to use, sitting on one of their players here, but we'll switch back over to Gambit as they've just lost control. Their Wraith, she's going to go into a down state. Leogri, more than likely an easy res in the future for Hardeki, and that's exactly what Artico is going to work towards right now. We're just going to see Leogri continue to hold the extremity of this one as the triple take primed them ready to go at range also here. Gambit playing this very, very cautiously. Ooh. They know that there's still more elements in this that they have not figured out yet, and that is going to be one of them, a new squad being added to the fray as they jump in from the choke point.
Oh, but it looks like there might be a possible push from behind them as well if we get a reposition from Avantgarde. Totem, but more specifically Amaz, still able to hold on to this placement as of right now. Some possible placement points for them if Amaz can possibly get through it. But now as we jump on board with Disco Boys, for what I think is the very first time here, we're on board with Krama as MPE is taking so much damage. Krama's trying to get the reposition with the Gibby shield. He'll do so. He'll also get on top of that shield battery, which was desperately needed at the moment. Sirius trying to deal as much damage as possible, but oh no, Disco Boys don't disco no mo as they all go down. And that's going to be the shields for Gambit as they'll get back on top of these mats. Yeah, you can only dance for so long before you have to, go over, get above, and
really,
kind of relax.
Really stretched that one on the
You're welcome.
I'll take it, or I guess you'll take it, but...
Listen, you gotta make it fun. If you're gonna sit here for hours and not have fun with it, I mean, come on.
I think we're gonna see Avantgarde encroach upon the members of Gambit relatively soon here, assuming they're still in the general area of operation for Gambit. They were potentially flanking up behind them in a moment, but possibly no longer the case. Going over to New Esports, who's also in a fight versus Alliance and about to win it from the looks of things too. Okay, maybe not. Kersha coming down to the wire on him as well, but looks like they bounced out of that one pretty quick. The problem is we've got another squad jumping into the fray. That's going to be able to take them out, leads to both the elimination of the Alliance as well as New Esports. Underrated is the team that comes in for the third party there and cleans up New Esports.
Oh, so Underrated switching out the Horizon for the Crypto. That's something that we hadn't talked about just yet. Obviously, K20 going to be down, so not going to have a big effect as to what's happening right now, especially inside of the Intel game. But either way, looks to be a big change up as to what we happened. And actually, funny enough, big flashback moment as well, as we'll be having the exact same circle that we saw Underrated lose in the dying moments of in the previous match.
Nessie going to be sitting very close to another squad here. Definitely doesn't want to fight them as of yet if they have a choice in the matter. Great shots coming out on the scout here for JMW, though, as he finishes off another squad in the distance and gets at least that single KP for his efforts. Aside from that, JMW, though, does have to be a little bit cautious, as is the rest of Nessie. Like we already talked about, that other squad right around the corner. Might be Third Impact here, but no, Third Impact getting aggressive right up in the face of Gambit. as they try to wipe them out and I believe succeed in doing so. Gambit falling out, one of their lowest placing games as of yet there, as they're only able to push themselves into the top 9. Avant-Garde immediately ready to third-party TI as well here. They are stuck behind a Gibby shield. They're going to change up the pace though as they leap to the skies, seeing if that gives them the advantage they need. Unfortunately not for their first 2 players. Zeki though, on a high ground position, can try to abuse this to the best of his capabilities there, getting some good damage onto ZH, but he needs to do a lot more than that if he wants to survive this, let alone make it out of here.
Well, it doesn't seem like Zeki exactly has the utility in his hands to be able to deal with this situation either, as they'll try to immediately leave the area. The shield already broken. Avant-Garde doing their best to try and follow him, but instead they'll just finish up the kills either way. Much rather secure those KPs than try and chase Zeki all over God's green earth. And Zeki immediately going to bat back up as well as get on top of these syringes, but he's already taken some damage from across the way as well. We're already down to 6 squads here as this situation has begun to develop very, very quickly and more devolve than evolve for anything. But it looks like NCD now with one of the strongest positions that they can possibly have inside of this circle. We saw this position taken up the last time as well, and it seemed to be the best for as of what was going on. NCD has actually lost Badoli as well, so they're down to their last 2 remaining members. So this might not be the absolute best thing for them. They'll down the Wraith. They're able to try and get the kill, but oh no, Nessie actually getting out with it either way. Mayday not going down fully either, so Mayday will be able to be picked back up, and they'll hop right back into the fight. Graceful assisting with the Mastiff from range, able to take down the last remaining member here of Totem, or actually no, not of Totem, of Third Impact instead. That's actually going to be Totem Amaz being taken down as the last remaining member of Totem as well. So there's going to be 2 squad wipes going down here, and I believe our last 4 squads still up.
Still in the engagement. Avant-Garde looking to make some big impact here. They've been hanging on to a top 10 position, I believe even more than that as well. Nearly a top 5 position for a large majority of our games so far. Going to see ZH with positioning here, and more importantly with a Kraber to do some serious damage. Only 3 shots though. He does not want to miss this on an awkward view model position here, so he wants to wait for the full peak. That's it right there. Again, waiting a timing issue here too, but there's the knock. Nicely done. Great patience coming out from ZH in order to guarantee an initiation for his team, and more importantly, make sure that there's not going to be enough pressure roiling out from that squad later on in the game here. Eating up mats at the minimum. More members of Avant-Garde putting in the effort here too, putting some serious damage onto our squad, sitting at the bottom of the high ground advantage right now.
And this looks to be one of the easiest games as of right now that Avant-Garde have ever played. They have such solid positioning, great utility usage so far, and
they've got to be careful with this though. I mean, like, I'm not sure if they realize Nessie's right around the corner from them as of yet here. So now they know, obviously, Nessie's going to jump right onto them. So let's see. This is the big test for AVG. Nessie's got good positioning to re-engage on these guys here, and Avant-Garde might end up going into suboptimal positioning in order to wipe out that first squad that they're going for. Here comes the EMP though, in order to change it up and allow them to try and re-engage.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, that EMP coming through to deal the damage to the shields necessary for they'll be able to get the switch out as well as Goes able to get away from all of this damage. Avant-Garde still able to play their strong positions. It's Plushka taking a lot of the hits right now, but oh no, it's the aggressive play from Nessie. Avant-Garde able to down one, but they'll trade out instead. Goza trying to get this damage off, but he's taking more than he's able to actually deal. Has to get back on top of that shield battery. Nessie looking quite strong as of right now, but oh no, all the shields gone. JMW trying to get back on top of the shield as well. The reposition for Avant-Garde, they have the Eva out. Plushka doing his damnedest to push forward. He knows there's a target behind this box, and that's going to be the last one alive for Nessie as Avant-Garde win out inside of this final engagement. Fantastic stuff for them, and great usage of that EMP from Crypto in the dying moments.
I mean, really great stuff overall from Avant-Garde. What a hero story in that final 3-squad engagement that we had going on there. Not only are they the initial aggressor in that fight, the one that tries to jump onto the squad sitting below that little rock formation there that was trying to hide and, more importantly, trying to survive as long as they could. But then they take the brunt of the engagement from Nessie, turn it back around, and are able to wipe out not only the original target they were up against, but Nessie as well. Really, really well done by our winning team there, as they're going to be able to take control of a very well-deserved victory, and probably a heck of a lot of KPs on top of it all, assuming they were able to get the credit for that first engagement they took in the final circle.
Yeah, I think that this is going to leave Avant-Garde in a really optimal position, not only for today, but going into tomorrow once we get that far. So we'll have to see once we get to the leaderboard updates. But either way, an amazing matchup here for them, especially with this right here. This is more than likely the winner, just dealing with, triple impact over there inside of the corner, as well as just having access to that Kraber. We saw Goz stand on this box for what seemed to be an eternity, waiting for the perfect moment. And the funniest thing is, he shoots the exact model that he was staring at the entire time and still does 150 damage. So either way, Avant-Garde with not only solid positioning and great utility usage, but just all of the means necessary to close out the situation when it came down to that final circle.
Remember, they were keeping that pressure up right from the beginning of the game. They were involved in the skyhook chaos that was going on at the beginning there, too, as they tried to, at least on one occasion, trap down the solo Q goats to try to take them down. It was unsuccessful, but again, as part of this game, they play it very smart. They don't overcommit. They back out before potentially getting pinched in that scenario, and more importantly, get themselves to safer harbor to be able to rotate and eventually win the game, as we saw just there. Beautiful work by Avant-Garde. We'll be following up with them and the rest of our teams in just a few minutes here. Quick break. When we come back, we'll take a look at the scores and get ready for Game 6. Getting very close to the end of day one here at the GLL Masters Spring, ladies and gentlemen. We're here for our European Grand Finals. As you can see at the top of your screen, we're just about ready to jump into our 6th game of the day out of 8 that we're looking to play here in 16 overall in our event. We're going to play the other 8 tomorrow, of course. Let's take a look at the scores for our most recent match and see where the overall standings are positioned. Stokes, what are we looking at here? Oh my goodness.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly how I felt about this as well when I got to take a look at it. Avant-Garde, 13 KPs as well as 12 placements points going into that, so it's going to be 25 points overall. Nessie able to put together 20 points as well, with 11 KPs coming through for that, and then the rest of the board just kind of straggling along. Reply Totem only with 10 points, and then trickling down through the top 10. So let's throw up what happened here and see what our action is actually led to today. Gambit Esports still right up on top of things, John. This is the team that we've been highlighting throughout the day as one of our most consistent squads. That last one not being the most consistent, though, and that's why Nessie has actually challenged once again for the crown, as they have tied things up 62-62.
There's now 3 games so far in this series where we've had a dead tie for first place. So this is a very, very close tournament indeed. Gambit has been in that tie position every single time, though. So they are still the dominant team, at least for the time being. Nessie's consistent placements, of course, netting them that. And Avant-Garde's absolutely barnstorming match they just played there pushes them up a solid 3 to 4 placements overall into third, bumping CMK out of the top 3. NCD continuing to falter as well, unfortunately. And again, beyond that, we've had our kind of bottom of the top 10 there continue to shuffle quite a bit over the past few games. You can see Underrated Alliance still relatively in the same position, and they've been trying to claw their way back up after some unfortunate turn of events at the beginning games for them.
Yeah, it's been quite the difficult path for them so far, but the good news for them is that they can obviously stay within striking distance of their opponents. Yes, obviously the score line is seemingly quite bleak, but we still have 3 matches left to play today, as well as another set tomorrow. So let's jump right back into it, folks, as we're on board with Avant-Garde to start us out with match 6.
Avant-Garde, obviously a big victory coming out in that last game, and a lot of it with aggressive play styles too. Like we said, right here at Skyhook itself, this team was immediately trying to jump on others. We were seeing the solo Q goats, of course, be the first team to get aggressive, but Avant-Garde were pretty close behind when they heard the fighting begin, trying to capitalize on whatever was going to be left over from that. Now, they were unable to take out the solo Q goats, but still making some impact around that area, and especially later on in the actual match too, when they started to get closer towards the circle and when the fights were a little bit more forced upon them. So they'll be keeping a close watch on their backs as they drop into Skyhook yet again here, expecting the solo Q goats or possibly another team to jump on them here early on.
Well, third impact, unlikely counting their lucky stars at the moment, as it doesn't seem like anyone has tried to take Epicenter once again. But actually, as soon as I say that, it looks like Zeke actually in an engagement. Balin going to go up the gravity lift here, see if he can possibly see anyone around the area, but no, it's just going to be a reposition to try and assist Jazz up top, as Jazz actually bearing down on some opponents, and they're going right into the Gibby shield here. They feel like they've got the engagement, plenty of damage off onto the opponents already from that higher end point, able to actually get it done. Air, as well as the rest of Ethics, once again fall to third impact inside of the opening moments.
Try to see the loot ball up in the sky here. Third impact will take that real quick. Nice little shot on the gold ones. We'll see what they can get from that and probably get something good. Maybe. Actually, pretty disappointing, actually.
Yeah, that's honestly, screw the point that I was going to talk about. What is that? How do you hit the yellow one and you get like, what was that? Like shotgun ammo?
It was the headshot hop up. That's it.
Oh, skull piercer.
Skull piercer. Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, I guess if you want to run a wingman, but how often do we see people run wingmans in this? You know,
usually not by choice, unless you're me. So.
Yeah, guys, this man last night I overlooked a skull piercer because I didn't think any of us were running one, and he runs past the building that I already searched and he runs inside and sees it and he goes, Stokes, why didn't you tell me about this? I was like, I didn't think you were running a wingman, dude. Like,
you gotta pick all the good stuff, man. You never know, you know. All right, so a little fight broiling, or at least a partial one. NCD getting some heat onto the team, trying to push into their territory here. Ooh. Careful though, NCD. Specifically, Dolphin nearly getting shot right in the face. Unsure of the gun that was, but it certainly looked like it would have done a lot of damage. As GYD on the other end of this fight, but definitely doesn't want to stay in this fight. Just to be clear, it looks like they're wrapping around pretty quickly to make a dash for the circle. They don't want anything to do with this engagement.
Yeah, I can't exactly blame them, as those placement points usually end up meaning quite a lot in the grand scheme of things, and looks like Solo Q Goats might be completely ignoring that, as it looks to be frag time, especially for Shiv. He's got the Bloodhound ult out. Diff making a very aggressive play with the hop here, able to get the ult down, uses the pad to spring himself forward, and he'll take down the Wraith immediately. Nice pickup here from Solo Q Goats onto this squad, as they'll continue to push this forward.
With the Havoc too, good stuff. Shiv's still waiting for a potential opportunity to engage on the rest of the team, if there is anyone left or anyone that might still be in their vision. JMW is, of course, around the corner, but still very far away. Here's going to be the problem, though. Nessie potentially jumping onto these players here. I believe this is where Graceful's coming from there. Either way, the Solo Q Goats going to have to fall back from this position now, as they really can't maintain against Graceful up there, who's doing some serious damage to them right now.
Well, actually, here's the problem. So the person that actually got taken out by Solo Q Goats, that was Mady, which is Nessie's Wraith. So he's gone now. So that's why so it was just very poor positioning here.
Situation,
yeah, exactly. So just very, very poor positioning here from Nessie, not able to assist Mady when it was, well, exactly the most optimal thing to do. Graceful obviously still having that triple take. He'll have some solid positioning up top here. He'll try to deal some more damage across the way, but not able to actually get it off. And I don't necessarily think that they'll be able to actually rebound from this and go pick up their friend's banner either.
Either way, that will leave us, I should say, with only one squad down overall. But Nessie going to be stunted for the rest of this game due to the early loss of their third teammate. More importantly, their Wraith, too. So that's most of their mobility now going to go down the drain here. More importantly, the repositioning that could come from the portal. A very useful piece of utility, especially inside of that final chaotic circle, for more just causing chaos or causing uncertainty from your opponents more than anything. You just don't have that anymore. Completely gone from your arsenal. Not to mention the general 2v3 disadvantage they're going to be fighting against throughout the rest of this game. So definitely don't expect any sort of aggressive playstyle to come from Nessie. The KP is definitely not going to be plentiful for them.
Yeah, and as you said, it's all about the reposition there with Wraith inside of those dying moments for those circles. And we've seen that quite often throughout these matches so far, where Wraith has really been the only legend that's able to make a play like that, where you can actually, you know, go into the void, work your way through the circle without taking any damage, and reposition your entire squad into safer harbor, but obviously not going to have access to that any longer. As we got the quick update on the map, you can already see quite a few of these squads already repositioning over towards Epicenter, as this is going to be, well, the epilogue here for our match 6. It's the Battlegrounds as of right now. NCD with some solid position to start us off, as they've had throughout the day, and that's going to continue here with this Epicenter circle.
Moving away over towards Alliance, so their team that sure the folks at home are very interested to see how they've been doing, but so far have been struggling to get themselves further up on the scoreboard with one of those high placement games. Really only takes a few, though, in order to make up the difference. So Alliance are just waiting for the opportunity that they've been waiting for so long to really boost them up into being one of our top contenders inside of this tournament. They're going to try to be aggressive here, specifically Hakis moving up taking position away from what was just an opponent's spot a couple seconds ago, but not going to be able to figure out where that player actually went. So they're just going to continue on their merry way here as they head over towards the next choke point.
Well, IPN will be able to spot anyone if anybody peeks at all.
There he is.
There it is right there. You guys got to remember that Bloodhound ult, truly incredible when it comes down to searching for a target. Highlights everybody red, and if there's something to see amongst the bleak grayness that is Bloodhound's screen currently, it's obviously going to be that highlighter red enemy as he tags up yet another one. IPN looking very solid right now for Alliance as he'll continue his aggression. The fodder coming through onto the opponents, but Alliance have to go for the reposition instead, and they'll be able to get away with their lives.
She calls us the Bluth goggles, I guess is what you would call this. But either way, the Lion's going to continue to move away from this position as they rotate, leaving towards Fragment now, possibly Skyhook. Trying to figure out exactly where we are, but pretty sure we're heading into Fragment here as we're closing in on that part of the map for the circle. And indeed, I was right. There we go. Getting better and better at this map game. Either way, Epicenter is very much going to be the center of this circle as we start to close in on it here. So many of our teams already on the inside of it. This could be another one of those chaotic games like we had a couple ago where we had like 16 teams alive on round 3 or 4. Curious to see if we can get that. But Alliance is not the only team heading south to north right now on a clear here. Underrated also on the warpath as they try to carve in, possibly against Alliance themselves here, as they're going to move in with the benefits of the Death Totem to try and jump on their opponents. It's going to be a Reply Totem, that's on the other side of this fight, though, as they try to defend their current positions.
Well, Reply Totem being taken down by the Death Totem doesn't seem like their insurance policy is as strong as Underrated's. He's got to make sure you're in good hands when it comes down to it. So Case Sweeney and the rest of the squad able to stay right up on top of things. A great start here for them, especially being able to keep Crypto alive. Underrated, though, now taking some fire, but it's not the squad, it's Dezo. So be able to reposition here. Alliance bearing down on top of them as they'll start to take some heat as well, but it's the Bloodhound mostly who's now been down. Now it's a 2v3 here, but they'll be able to get the Gibby shield down and get that Bloodhound back up, but it's still going to take some time to get him back into the fight. They'll need to reposition yet again and need to get some shields back onto that Bloodhound before they can take this fight.
Alliance here moving in. There is going to be...
Sharp in the top of this building?
Yes, it is. Sharp hiding out somewhere in that building, potentially with the free capability to just jump on Alliance here.
There's a stowaway, boys.
If they would like to. Oh my goodness! He's in the rafters! He's on the rafters! He's like, I'm not touching this fight. I'm just going to sit here and keep my mouth shut.
This is like...
It's like, okay, I'm just, yeah, that just happened. It's Gibby too. That's the best part. It's a Gibby.
Oh my gosh, man. This is like those stories you hear when they're like, yeah, there was a homeless man that lived in somebody's attic for 3 years. And this is how
no one knew about it.
Exactly. Like he's just residing on top of your HVAC unit pipe. Like, what is going on, man?
You should look up, kids.
Oh, yeah.
You never know what might be lurking on the roof.
I mean, listen, in Apex, we should all know that. I think all of us have been murdered by, oh man, I can't, it's not damn, but what's a bunker? The doors inside a bunker, remember how they used to have like the AC units over them and people would stand on top of them?
They're taking them out.
They did take them out. They're gone now.
Yep.
And probably the exact reason as well is people just getting a little too creative with their positioning sometimes, but this time it will end up getting Sharp away with his life and possibly Totem with a better placement here. So be able to get away with at least one member. Kick now as we jump on board with them are actually inside of their own engagement. Frag grenades down as that Gibby shield will not be able to save them from that. And oh no, Denze, the last remaining one. The black hole dealing a little bit too much damage there with that thermal in tow, and Third Impact will walk away with all of the frags.
Yeah, just not really much they can do to escape that situation there. So Third Impact cleans up. Very clean fight. Impact, but their opponents going to be left with pretty much nothing to do to respond to that, especially with the amount of firepower they were dealing with there, specifically their Crypto, the last player standing, literally running between nades. So it was just a matter of time until that one was going to end up getting knocked out. Now, Third Impact are not necessarily safe here as of yet either. GYD still sitting directly under them with the potential to re-engage. GYD, of course, going to probably play this passively. Generally not too advantageous to jump on a team with high ground advantage from the low ground. So we'll see if they try to capitalize upon this, what I believe is an unknown position currently by TI, when TI has to move out of here. Because as you can see, the circle right on the edge of this position and more than likely going to close in on this facility. on the next wave.
Oh, well, we are going to jump on board with OCN here as they're starting to take some heat of their own. They've been down by the circle effectively, or at least it seems to be, as DZWKA, I'm not even going to make an attempt here, tries to pick up his friend. Looks like we will have that at least go through here. Trying to hold down onto the door now as well, but oh no, down immediately after. And it looks like OCN might not be able to get through this. The Revenant deals the damage, but Solo Q Goats are on top of this as well as they just battle right through the door. The kills didn't even matter in that exchange. They just bully.
Does it even get through the door right now?
I think so, because we just saw the other one hop through. I think Bloodhound ended up.
They can. Yeah, I was about to say, like, that would be not great if they were
getting blocked in by death boxes.
I mean, if the people on the inside, they'd be in trouble there. But yeah, thankfully the death box is not going to completely block the collision on the inside of that door. Either way, down to 16 squads now. Pretty low amount of teams getting knocked out, but that's because of the gap on our circle right now, and that's going to continue to close in a moment. From what you guys can see just on the minimap, the next circle is going to be brutal. There is no cover to deal with, or to use, I should say, inside of our next circle, and it's going to get even worse the circle after that here. So we will very quickly start to see these 16 squads diminish over the next, I would say, 2 to 3 minutes here, as there is just not going to be enough of these teams to use, and the circle is going to begin to pressure them in. You can see that Solo Q Goats are still actually just literally playing in the circle, not even going to the inner circle just as of yet here, because the damage hasn't gotten to a point where they need to worry about that. But I believe on the next wave is where it really starts to become lethal, and they're absolutely going to have to vie for positioning, and that's when all these other teams are going to start fighting too. It's actually a pretty smart strategy, in my opinion, from the Solo Q Goats to try and be the last element to enter this. So we're just going to have to see what kind of HP that leaves them at when they get forced into their first fight.
Yeah, especially with the next circle moving so quickly. They actually ended up re-entering it at about 45 seconds, so they don't have to wait too long for these other squads to have to try and make a move. So it's a pretty solid positioning for them, and definitely the way that they want to try and enter this. So I completely agree with you in that regard. Either way, though, we have Gambit as well as NCD with some really strong positioning around Epicenter. Most notably NCD, who we were on board with before, but now Gambit starting to tag up some people on the lower end of this area. They've already got the Gibby shield down. That shield about to go away here at a moment's notice as Hardeki continues to tap away at his opponents, dealing consistent damage across the board, but about to run out of ammo inside of that magazine. Still has plenty of wells to deal with, though, about 226 when it comes down to it.
Just needs to hit like 2 to 3 of these consistently, and that's going to be one player getting cracked out completely. But the pop shots that he's connecting every once in a while are still good as well. New Esports, as we take a look at them, dealing with a lot of pressure right now. They're actually going to self-detonate one of their caustic mines sitting on the ground here just to try and force out their opponents from the room. And it works pretty well, too. Gets them off their back after they had just wiped out another team here. It looks like we're in the process of getting third-partied, but obviously that has failed here. A little bit of a panic for Chris there, as he just drops his shields really quickly when he sees the drone to make sure that it doesn't get EMP'd out. But will end up being the case, just a passerby, or at least the time being, as the New Esports will be able to fully rejuvenate themselves and be very much ready for the next fight. More importantly, is there anyone on the roof in their room, though? They need to check that, but I'm not sure if that's, highly doubt that that's the same thing.
Oh no, NCD with the engagement, but it seems to have gone awry. Tons of damage coming out onto them, but oh no. An Arc Star with a down as well as a frag, I believe. Some immense damage coming through for NCD, so I'll hold on to my words instead. It seemed to be their defensive bombardment dealing all of the damage and not the other way around. But now, as we're jumping on board with Croissant for our second time, I assume, for the matches today, they've actually got some really solid positioning over NCD. They'll get a break, but it doesn't seem like they want to have this engagement just yet.
Clone here doing work with the triple take. Cracked the player before. Going to crack a second one for himself now. The Gibby shield will save the day for that player on the other end of the engagement, however. Plushka going back over to Avantgarde. Our current winners from the previous matchup under a lot of pressure. Specifically, Plushka has 3 different nades on the warning sensor right there from what I could see. Still holding on there, getting the battery off, back at full HP, and the same fate will befall the rest of this team also. Avantgarde ready to re-engage, but can they deal with the pressure? Hopefully no more nades for their opponent on the other end of it. Otherwise, they wrap their way back. Some spray coming in, no connection for Defaus. Plushka and ZH still trying to push up from the other end of this too. Attempting a pinch, but so far unsuccessful. They're going to reignite it here in a moment, but those incendiaries keeping them held back, as well as obscuring the vision to a pretty major degree here. There's also a third element just past this fight, too, so going to have to be cautious about that as we switch over to solo queue goats, who are the team being pressured out by two different squads right now. Nothing, unfortunately, that Bloodhound can do, and we're going to see Shiv fall as the last player standing there. Plushka finishes it off as we do see Avantgarde wipe out the remnants of solo queue goats. They've got to immediately get ready for another fight, though. That third party's coming in quick.
Yeah, and especially when you're in the bottom of Epicenter, it gets quite difficult. Such a congested area, and NCD are playing so well into it. The Eva's just eating them alive. Avantgarde have nothing to deal with this situation, and that's exactly why they're going to go down so quickly. NCD practically artillery strike the inside of the building, and they'll make mincemeat out of this entire squad. They'll pick back up Dolphin and get right on their merry way, and immediately after that, third impact now in an engagement of their own as they use the gravity lift for the reposition, the defenseman bombardment, and they're trying to find some safe area to get away from these explosives that are currently plaguing them. Balin taking a lot of damage, as well as Zeki, as oh no, in come the Arc Stars, and they're doing so much as of right now. It downs a singular member of Impact. That's going to be Balin. No more Gibby Shield to be able to muster. They'll actually end up claiming space as well. Balin no longer revivable either, as you can see. Nasky, Dell, and Yuki, GYD, excuse me, actually moving up to this position as third impact, able to get the reposition as well. But as you can see, a lot of squads currently working this area, as it seems to have just hit a low point just for the moment. But actually, it's going to be Alliance up next.
So many squads getting wiped out on that transition. We go from 16 to 9 now over the course of that circle closure, and it's going to get even crazier in 50 seconds here, as we still have 10 squads in this fight. Can't stay that way for very long. Already seeing quite a few of the aggressive ones getting knocked out. We are going to see GYD get quite aggressive, though, knocking down one of their opponents here in the inside of this fight. Row as well going down there, more than likely going to see a full wipe, as indeed that team going to get knocked out. GYD picking up the kill leader in the process of that one, being able to take down another squad here.
Well, it looks like we're going to have the kill lead currently at 3, which is something I didn't think we were going to see at Circle 5. But yeah, looks like we're currently at a KP leader of 3 for this one. So a little bit of a slower matchup so far. But as you can see, with how small this circle is and 6 squads left, this is going to be an absolute hell in a cell. And it starts off now. Nasky with a nice shot is able to break the armor immediately off rip of the Gambit member, but the reposition from Gambit as well as the rebat will get them set up for war, and we'll see when that war cry is able to come through. Nasky, Yuki, Dell not wanting to be the aggressors, instead playing for more of a rebound gameplay here. Able to consistently get off some damage as Dell finally starting to push forward. More reactive than proactive is what I was trying to get at before, but it seems like the shield play going to be so beautiful with the Eva. So much damage coming through from
There's
GYD,
the wingman.
but can they possibly do it? Yuki finally seals the deal. He's not going to be able to get back up his friend, but no, actually they do. They get Dell rezzed, as he'll be able to at least get some meds back into his system.
Alliance down to only a single player remaining. Hawk is going to give himself away with the portal deployment. He's trying to set him up, though. Keep in mind, he still has 2 teammates that are in a revivable state. There's an enemy in the mix there, too, by him, so he needs to be cautious if he goes for the res, just because the immediate intel will be given out when he first makes the attempt. With the circle closing in, he's going to need all the help he can get. A decision needing to be made right now. Do we go for this res or not? He's going to attempt it. T-Rex wrapping onto him, though, immediately putting the pressure right back on. GYD doing exactly the same here. No elimination as of yet. Thankfully, that Gibby shield going down off of the res in order to save the day for the Alliance, but for how long is the question. T-Rex back off, respect the Gibby shield, and of course being cautious of GYD and anyone else that's still in this element also.
Well, you got to be happy that Blue just said T-Rex right there, because we have not seen them inside of a top 4 finish this entire day. So this could be the moment for them to really get the ball rolling. Alliance back at full strength, as you were saying. I think they still need to get 1 med kit in there on Vafes, and yep, that's exactly what they'll do. Alliance are ready for battle once again. Hakus is going to take a lot of damage, though, as they're continuing to get backed off by GYD. Also, remember Senya, the lone straggler here, off over in the corner that could be taken out at a moment's notice. So technically, hypothetically speaking, 3 squads here still remaining. Sonya just hoping for a top 3 finish if they can possibly muster that, but it's just possibly, well, as of right now, just trading shots back and forth from this low ground. GYD with such a advantageous position, continuing to bear down on both of these 2 squads' positions as they've split their forces and consistently dealing damage to both. The shield break after shield break right now, John, just continue to dwindle down these maps.
I mean, Dell's got the stack as well. Dell's got himself the PK as well as the Prowler. We're going to see them moving though. Sonya will get eliminated. T-Rex will take up the old position that Sonya was playing from and now get ready to fend off the aggression from the Alliance, who's coming on the other side of this. Alliance trying to wrap around. They've already lost Haikus and Vase. Only one player still standing for their squad. And there you go, IPN, the last to fall. That's the elimination of Alliance. It's all going to come down to T-Rex going up against whoever is still left in this fight. I believe it's Gambit, but I don't have that 100% certain just as of yet. Or no, excuse me, it's GYD. It's GYD, as they're going to be holding on to that top position. Like I said, they've got this stack of weapons. 2 crate guns sitting on Dell there, the Prowler and the Peacekeeper. They're going to jump in with it. Here comes the PK. Action coming out. Lots of damage due to how heavily they are stacked. It's an absolute shutdown from GYD, and they take a well-deserved victory here at the end of Game 6.
Well, I didn't know that keeping the peace could cause so much chaos. GYD with a lot of damage there at the end, and you can see the difference that was made in between the Peacekeeper and the Prowler there with that engagement. Just way too much damage onto T-Rex, and they could not handle the fire. Either way, though, GYD finally finding their very first victory of the day, although they've been quite consistent throughout. So, looking to challenge the top of the leaderboard. And what an amazing match 6 here that we just had.
Another unfortunate turn of events for Alliance inside of that final 3 position, at least making it to the top 2 this time. Definitely should have been able to scavenge some KPs for themselves as well. So as a result of that, should expect some decent results to finally show up in this game for the Alliance. Not the outright victory that I'm sure they wanted to look for, but a second place with hopefully decent kills should be enough to really push them up on the scoreboard as well and start making them a real competitor here inside of our top 3, top 4, wherever they end up. As Stokes said, that the real story is GYD, who's been finding consistency but hasn't also been able to pick up that win yet. So they're also going to be another contender here. This is turning out to be an incredibly close event in EU.
Yeah, as you said, and the thing about that is this could honestly, you know, flipped at any moment in time. That's the biggest thing, is like we're starting to see some teams that we saw in the semifinals start to challenge some of these teams inside of the actual game. It's not just on the leaderboard. We're seeing these matchups where they're able to take out some of the top contenders and start to get some better finishes. And that's the biggest thing. If we start seeing a lot of these top end squads die early on inside of these matches, that's going to lead to where we see a resurgence from the bottom of this leaderboard.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Game 6 is done. Only 2 games left before we reach the halfway point and the end of Day 1. So stick with us, and we'll be right back with the 7th game as we continue on with the GLL Masters Spring. Welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen. 2 games remain here. 6 exciting ones have already been played out. We're just about to start our 7th, but before we do that, as usual, we're going to take a quick look at the scores here and see where exactly the tournament sits, our grand finals sit, and where the prizing sits amongst all of our teams. GYD, of course, getting that absolutely controlling finish over it, and once again leading in the kill department this time, just like our last game also, by a massive margin. 13 frags going the way of GYD. The next highest, 8 being picked up by NCD, the second place team. T-Rex as well, only able to get 6. That's a 25-point gain going the way of GYD, with, again, another massive lead in that department also. The second highest point total being T-Rex at 15 gained.
Yeah, not only that, but just looking across the board in general, you can see Gambit Esports and Nessie finishing on the bottom half there. And here comes the update. Gambit able to edge him out once again by 3 points. Avangard battling back in a major way as they sure up that gap, as well as CMK as well. And actually going all the way down to just about 7th place here, being well within striking distance of first place. Underrated just outside of that if we want to try and close it inside of 1 game, but they're still looking solid inside of their consistency throughout. They just really need to get some wins under their belt.
So Gambit still controlling things despite the lackluster results, specifically in that last game, but a bit of an uncommon theme for them, as obviously, well, still in control of first place has left them in pretty good positions outside of that last game there. Nessie doing the same, a bit of a quiet second place from Nessie, only that 1 victory so far being picked up from them and just kind of casually holding on to usually some top 5 finishes, maybe even better than that from time to time as well, in order to net themselves the rest of their points, staying pretty competitive on the kill total overall there too as well. Avantgarde still controls that at 35. They're not too far behind at 27, as I believe they're 4th place overall for kills across these teams.
Yeah, Avantgarde currently the top of that one right there with 35 frags. They've been our most damaging team throughout this entire series so far. But either way, some solid finishes from Nessie, as you said, and that's been the thing for them, is they've been able to find these placements throughout every single match that has led them to one. The kills, yes, they have been there, but not as, bountiful as for these other squads. So we'll see if Nessie can rebound inside of those placements as we jump into match 7 right now, folks. And obviously, we got to be on board with GYD, our previous winners from match 6. So let's see if they can do it yet again.
GYD going to be going right for the fragment drop, as we've been seeing, I believe, them follow through with in quite a few of these other games also. So nothing changing up in that department. We'll follow along with some other teams here, see if we get any crazy engagements off of the bat. But as usually trended, it's been pretty rare. We've had a couple games where we've seen some challenges go on, but for the most part, people have been respecting each other's territory. And at most, we'll see 1 to 2 of those fights.
Okay, well, on board with GYD now is, they're going to be starting off at Fragment. We haven't been seeing too much action happen around Fragment, but it does look like, I believe that we just switched seats here, John. It looks like Third Impact is actually going to be taking over Survey Camp at Epicenter, and now we're going to have our previous friends of theirs move on over to Refinery, because it doesn't seem like they want the smoke at Epicenter anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean, TI has kind of been taking Epicenter for the past couple of games. Ever since we saw that aggression from them, they kind of asserted dominance on that hot drop that they went for, and were able to force them out of there. So they've been forcing those other opponents, Yuko and those guys, to spawn over towards Refinery pretty much since that fight ended up going down. Now, away from this, we still have, the ever-present Skyhook fight. But here's the thing, as I'm sure you guys have noticed by this point, the circle is absolutely going to Skyhook. So
there's no if, and, or buts. It is most definitely.
These teams can absolutely sit here and brawl out, but they've got to be careful. Again, we saw how quickly third parties were transpiring just among the localized teams at Skyhook when we had that crazy chain of events go on with solo queue goats like 2 to 3 games ago. Now, the problem is if you end up committing yourself to a fight at Skyhook now, while you've got like 10 plus teams barreling towards you, if you don't finish that fight quickly enough, you are absolutely going to guarantee a third party out of that situation. So more than likely, Skyhook's actually going to be pretty quiet, in my opinion, at the beginning of this game due to that factor.
Yeah, I think a lot of these squads, especially at the lower half of the map here, are going to try and work their way up to Fragment and across. Obviously, we're going to have some scamper over to the left-hand side of the map as well, but probably the safest way to gain access here, work your way to the outside of that circle, then slowly, get control of Skyhook or work your way towards that area. But as we jump on board with Solo Q Ghosts, they're at Countdown as of right now and dealing some consistent damage with the Alternator, not having the best weaponry at their disposal. But, oh, John, this is going to make you happy. It's a Wingman with Skull Piercer as he's trying to deal some damage, but just as John missing all of his shots. Zippeth trying to rebound here, able to get some assistance. Diff's been down. Zip is actually going to find some safe harbor here behind the box, but I think they've actually cleaned up this area for the time being. I'm sorry I had to put you on blast there, my friend, but
I know,
it is
man.
what it is.
Clearly you haven't been watching my Wingman play, but either way, moving on
some more
from that.
YouTube content, man. Where's the Wingman clips?
T-Rex still trying to survive here. More importantly, trying to keep their single player surviving, as it's Dippities is the only one left that can fight out of this scenario. Zareth and Kearney just getting finished off a couple seconds ago there, so no real capability for him to swing back in. He's going to real quickly throw the drone out to see if they left the area with relative haste, because that may allow him to go back in and get the banners at minimum. But more than likely, they're going to end up camping on top of that, which will completely prohibit him from being able to get his teammates back, and he'll just have to play for placement throughout the rest of this game. Still some trouble for the solo queue Goats, though, as they're being chased down, I believe, by OCN currently, as they're trying to survive also with 2 players incredibly low. And indeed, OCN involved in this fight, I believe, able to just down out one of them. Has to fall back for just a moment here in order to get the full heal off, but is already going to be diving right back in. Teammate just took down Shiv there. Another member of the solo queue Goats. Oh no, the finisher coming in as well there for OCN as they try to quickly bleed out these remaining players on the solo queue Goats side of things. And I think that they've pretty much taken them down, all except for one now.
Absolutely. Well, also just to remind you that previous squad that we were watching, I'm not really privy to the name as of right now, but oh yeah, it was T-Rex. Deputies is crypto, so he doesn't have to walk back in to get their banners. He just can just use the drone and just
Oh,
fly
that's
over
right.
the crate.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, no, you're good, man. We have listen.
Forgot about
We never ever play crypto. Like the last time that I played crypto, they had to put Kearney inside the box. You have to go into the holding cell, sir, until you get reconnected to the game. Here's your shield. Here's your. Would you like a pamphlet? Do you want to know anything about this trip that you're about to take, sir? Either way, looks like T-Rex is gonna have to wait around for him. But yeah, some really good usage of the crypto drone there. And as I was saying before, we don't really use him all that often when you and I play. The last time that I actually used him was when you told me about that. So it's still really awesome utility to use.
Memory blanked for a second. Too many games been casting, so I forgot about that. Either way, though, yeah, that leads to a very quick revival of his two teammates. So that's one of the benefits of bringing crypto. You know, if you get completely wiped off the map here at the beginning, you can use that drone. So just saying to quickly rebound that. And as we have just seen, already bring Kearney and Zerafor back into the fight here, assuming Kearney reconnects, that is.
I mean,
Which, hey, I think he just came back. So.
I was going to say, if crypto's so good with technology, wouldn't he just get him to reconnect? I mean, come on,
Can he just set up a better network for Kearney? Like, come on.
Just network better for him.
Dude, the hacker. What are you doing?
All right, well, jumping on board with new esports now as things have begun to get a little bit problematic for them, but it doesn't seem like anything that they can't handle themselves, especially with Caustic being along for the ride. They're playing this building out extremely well as of the moment. Roger Bogger dealing some consistent damage as well as they'll hop to start trying to deal with this Gibby. Not consistent damage enough, though, as they'll actually end up getting traded out. It's all down to post-kill. Now, remember, he does still have his ult as well as those bats or those caustic setups inside of the building. Currently moving back and forth around the box, finally able to get the shots necessary as they dip back and forth, but he'll be able to at least get the res on one of his teammates. Roger Bogger will be cleaned up, so they'll have to deliver his beacon if they want to try and get the res.
So far, solo Q Goats going out in last place, unfortunately, in OCN in 19th. Other than that, things are going to remain relatively quiet across the map, save for a couple stragglers, more specifically New Esports obviously having to get one of their players back up, and one other team also still down a player at this point in time, working only with two. We'll have to see if that will remain that team's fate throughout the rest of the game here. Specifically, Bowon going to be taking some heat here too, as I believe that is the squad only with two still standing. Their third most recently lost in a fight just a second ago. Like we said, Skyhook turning into the pivotal battle point as we kind of expected it to be. We've already started to see that come to fruition, at least slightly. Yappers under quite a bit of pressure here as well. There's a horizon pull against them, but thankfully no immediate engagement coming out from the squad which threw that, so they're going to be able to stay safe on the inside.
Yappers will get a good read on the situation as well from that sonar scan, but it doesn't reach out to where Kick currently are. They're about 140 meters out, as you can see, so that sonar blast not going to deal too much in finding out their current positioning. So it seems as though well, at least as of right now, it's simply going to be sitting on their hands and waiting for this next engagement. Skyhook, always a fun circle when it comes down to it, and it's because of all of these buildings. Multiple different levels to play, multiple different facets for these teams to utilize and try and get an advantage on these other squads. We can already see some of these being utilized by Gambit as they're going to try and make an aggressive play onto GYD, but this isn't working out too well for them. GYD currently bombarding the top of this roof, and it looks like they're going to get it down onto Hardeki as well.
Nice boost coming up here for Yuki to jump into the engagement there, quickly finishing off that player, as well as netting them high ground for the rest of this fight here. They got a portal to quickly fall back, but thankfully the arch that they're currently on top of is going to serve as temporary cover and good enough for the time being here, but they will fall back down into the actual train station to just remain perfectly safe. That'll be Gambit actually getting knocked out in 17th as we take a look at our team tracker once again. That's big news there and a possible opportunity for some of the other front-of-the-pack leaders to very quickly push past Gambit and possibly take first place away as we get towards the end of the first day.
Oh, and if you're Nessie right now, seeing them go across the kill feed has to be the biggest deal. More than likely going to try and hold on to their positioning and try and play for placement, as they've been able to do throughout all of the day. But same with GYD, who was starting to look like the hero of this story as they battle back against these top end squads. And not only that, but doing it as the self-named squad, literally named after the players on the team. So pretty cool when it comes down to it that they've been able to take it to a lot of these squads. So either way, now as we're getting an update on the circle and how this is going to break, because obviously we saw before that it was going to go Skyhook, but we didn't know which way it was going to break, as opposed to how Skyhook is laid out. And it looks like it's going to be breaking towards the west, which a lot of these squads have already taken control of, especially Alliance inside of Trials, and currently look like they are actually doing Trials as well.
I believe we've got TI, CMK, and possibly Nessie all within just a couple rotations of each other here. And that could lead into a very chaotic fight if left unchecked. GYD also having some presence being pushed onto them. At the same time, Ethics. Oh no, what is about to happen here?
Oh no.
Ethics are going to have the surprise engagement of the century. Another squad quite literally trying to crawl their way into their territory. Unbeknownst to them, though, Ethics has full control of this zone. They have to immediately throw down the Gibby shield. The opponent's actually a pretty surprising amount of survivability coming out of this one. They don't lose anyone. Everybody's still back up and in fighting shape here, but now they're going to push the inside. Ooh. Ethics losing one of their own players, but one down in response here, trying to knock out the other two, as we'll go back over to Cray, who's also in the front load of this fight, as they clean up the rest of that squad and give themselves 3 more KPs. Beautifully played there by Ethics.
Masterfully played, especially from air right there, because it was really that initial damage that set them up for success, because obviously the opposing squad, especially after that shield break, had to back off, drop the Gibraltar shield, and then try and reassess the situation. But Ethics were so forceful in their engagement that the other team really didn't have any room to breathe and or think. So that's going to make for a really quick one for them and get some KPs on the board that were desperately needed. This squad has not been able to really find all too much throughout these games. They've been plagued mostly by third impact.
See Alliance still hanging out in Trials, and look at the loot they've got for themselves. 2 gold shields. Hakis has a gold helmet to play off of. These guys are dangerous here, especially considering there's probably more than that that's been built up for this team. Trying to get a little bit aggressive here, but nade pressure is going to send them back, and EMP connecting successfully onto Hakis as well is going to force him into a corner, and more importantly, into a position where he needs to fully reshield. But the same fate, at least to a certain extent, has befallen T-Rex. The problem that will surface for T-Rex, though, is they could get jumped on from the top of this structure if they're not careful by the team they just fought there. So they need to make sure they are secured against that and have a way out of here in the event things get too hot, which I think is exactly what Zerifer is looking for right now. We can see Alliance now up on top of the structure, doing just what I talked about before, looking for the capability to initiate on this team with the obvious high ground advantage.
Alliance are going to continue to hold on to that. We saw them obviously doing Trials a little bit earlier on, and that's more than likely why they were able to get away with such strong utility. You can already see very, very set up when it comes to the shields as well as everything else, and they've actually set up the top of Trials as more of a backup spot than anything. They've got 2 shields available to them for shield swaps, so more than likely going to hold on to this as long as possible. And oh my gosh, look at the amount of people inside of the circle right now. It's practically like rats at this moment with the amount of people currently on top of each other. But that's what we were talking about with how Skyhook tends to go. With just the amount of buildings around here, there's a lot of safe space for these teams to consistently play and not get dealt a lot of damage. So we'll have to see what these squads want to do, because this is more than likely going to be a handful of these teams trying to siege the other's building.
Gone all quiet for the most part across the map, however, as no one wants to be the one to engage first, although Kick is redeploying right now, I believe, moving pretty fast across the map there, jumping onto... There's actually 3 squads in that fight going on there. Alliance base is popping some shots off into the fight too, but let's head into it. It's Disco Boys. We take a look at them, getting a lot of pressure set onto them right here and right now. And it's not just one squad they're dealing with, it's 2 others that are also involved in this fight in one way, shape, or form. Now, Sirius more likely going to be able to get revived here, but they can't do it immediately just due to the amount of pressure that's broiling on them. It's too big of a risk. They're going to leave him in the corner in a down state for right now. With the ultimates broiling out from so many different people, though, they are going to take this moment of chaos as an opportunity to bring that teammate back up from the dead and hopefully give him the time he needs to fully heal and rejuvenate himself. Now, we've got another squad ready to move up the rope and immediately start pressuring them, so they will need to get those heals off quickly. On top of all the fighting that's happening here, there are multiple squads right around the corner that will absolutely be ready to third party this if given the opportunity.
Yeah, and Underrated are going to have a front row seat to this as well. Get the popcorn, folks. There's a war about to be fought inside of this building. And we could also have new esports hop into the fray at a moment's notice as well. But as I was going to say before, Krama and the rest of the squad currently held up inside of this building. Some great utility usage, especially with the ult to try and hold off the remaining squads from entering while they get their friend back up. So they'll be able to res him, get the shields back up, and actually fight this as a 3-man instead of 2 with a single downed man. So either way, seems like things are going to slow down just a little bit, although we do have 2 teams currently on top of each other in this building, and that could pop off at any moment in time. But now Underrated actually coming under fire from, I'm assuming, Alliance is currently at the top of trial.
Yeah, Alliance still with control of that. No one was really nearby to challenge them, or shouldn't have been able to challenge them, so I believe they're still going to be holding on to that as long as the circle allows them to control that part of the map here. Over on Reply Totem, you can see a lot of movement from them as they have a pretty powerful position here in the central skyhook itself. The problem with this position is that it's huge. You cannot easily watch this entire building for flanks, so you either have to play into this middle structure here and utilize that, which even that is pretty large here, or you have to split your team up, which has its own series of dangers. Not to mention there's verticality to this structure that needs to be accounted for, that Reply Totem is actually focusing on right now because they have a squad encroaching on them from the top side. Back over to the fight with the Disco Boys, though. They were able to get Sirius back up and have been able to keep him in relatively good straits. In fact, they're ready to possibly jump down and get into an engagement in a moment here against the other team that's holding the building against them.
Well, it depends on what MPE can muster here for health. As he'll hop on top of the med kit, Disco Boys currently waiting for their next move. It's going to be another scan out here. As you can see, still some shields laying about they can possibly shield swap with later on. They're going to get sonar detected yet again, but there's just so many squads around here that nobody wants to make a misstep. And as you can see,
being a jerk.
Exactly. Like, there's just no room to breathe for any of these guys inside of the building right now. Finally, Disco Boys attempting to create some space with this triple take will deal some damage back, so can possibly get these people to back off. That's going to be a pretty solid shot there, but it's not going to be enough to break the shield. Instead, immediately to the batteries for what assuming is an Alliance member. Disco Boys continuing to hold on to this very strong building position.
That's Totem as well as Air Squad sitting up on top of the skyhook itself. Both of those teams just kind of respecting each other for the time being. And we have CMK in the midst of this as well, just below Reply Totem. Not going to be able to thrive on the inside of the facility itself, but with a tiny amount of room to work with, they're happy to continue to sit in that spot and vie for placements as long as that position remains a viable position for them to be able to use here. Keep in mind, I don't necessarily know if any of the teams at Skyhook are aware of them either, so they may have a slight element of surprise or at least an expectation from the other 2 teams that they're not going to try anything aggressive over these next few moments. NCD, of course, as we switch over to their POV, still taking a lot of heat. They're still in the process, I believe, of fighting out against the Disco Boys, although that may be a separate fight. Alliance, in the meantime, has been able to clean up at least one team on the rotate from different building on the inside of Skyhook here, and NCD continuing to hold on in very strong fashion, getting out of the fights when they get too hot and keeping their HP in a very strong position. Avant-Garde still alive here also in another fight right now as they're trying to fight for positioning in the city too.
Oh, Avant-Garde pushing forward onto the Gibraltar shield, and it's going to be the easiest frag of their life. 2 Eva shells right into the back, and Avant-Garde get away with the frags. Have their own Gibraltar shield as well. Although ZH will go down, and he's actually murdered by the shots coming down here, or assuming the rockets, but no, it's actually been cleaned up by a shotgun. Avant-Garde having to deal with yet another squad pouring in. DeFaust trying to deal as much damage as he possibly can, but it's not enough. Plushka now stuck inside of the building as well, trying to get away with the flatline, moving as quickly as possible to find some cover. The shield bat back up, but oh no, the drone's detecting him, and this is the problem. Oh my gosh, they're gonna have some solid marks on him. The Arc Star's out, but he can't get the damage dealt. The Mastiff just too strong inside of that engagement, and GYD do it yet again.
We've, in a matter of a minute, lost half the squads that were in the lobby. 16-8 that quickly here, and we're not even done with the action just as of yet. Their GYD still dealing with a lot of pressure, most notably from Fresh's squad here, as they're trying to press in keep the pressure on to GYD, continue the third-party trade spree. We've got two different pools working their way in from two different horizons here as new esports now push into GYD's territory and successfully wipe them out, but they are not safe either. There is yet another squad jumping into this fight, trying to move up the elevator shaft, and there you go. Who is this going to be now? It's Third Impact that also has to deal with another squad, apparently, as they're down to just Jazaz now.
And Jazaz, oh, not looking too hot right now. Needs to get on top of this med kit as quickly as possible. And it looks like actually going to use one of those gravity lifts, actually try and hold back their opponents. But oh no, Denze attempting to burn out Jazaz, and it works.
Bad, dude.
It works. Oh no, the thermal. What a reposition from Denze. The window play coming through at a time that it was so desperately needed. But oh no, they've actually lost one of their members as well, John. Jakku has actually ended up going down. They were not able to get their banner back, so won't be able to try and recover them later on. Alliance still being a nuisance as always, was very, very strong position, and this triple take bearing down on their opponents, cracking shields and dealing damage all the way through.
I think we were up to like a 7th party there with how many people were jumping in on that fight after the last team had been wiped. So some really chaotic stuff going on the inside of the building, but finally moving outside of it takes us to what should be one of our final circles right here. Definitely some awkward positioning for multiple teams, but we've got some shining stars in the midst of this circle right now. Nessie still in the full strength with all 3 players. So is Alliance, and they're not the only ones. 2 other squads still potentially vying for a win here in match number 7, trying to get those crucial placement points before we close out the first half of this final on the next game, which will be our last game of the day here today.
And this is just so interesting, especially for these last 2 matches, given the circumstances. Remember, guys, Gambit, currently our leader right now, knocked out extremely early on. I don't even believe that they got a KP for this one, so it was basically a participation trophy when it came down to it. And now you have Nessie inside of the top 4, as well as T-Rex, a team that was so consistent inside of the semifinals who could possibly battle back inside of these last 2 matches today and set themselves up for success leading into tomorrow. Remember, this is only half of our matches today, so it's only half of the true story. Nessie, so far, pretty consistent inside of this match. Yeah, they got some KPs across the board, but they're playing their own play style. This is what we've seen from them throughout. This is one of the most mainstay comps inside of competitive Apex, and they've been doing a bang-up job of playing throughout it. But oh no, that could change up all of right now. They're actually going to reposition instead. Matey will be able to get away with his life, although the shields have been busted, so need to get on top of that. But JMW popping the Bloodhound hole and trying to hold back the entire enemy team. But they're right around the bend, and it doesn't seem as though they necessarily have that insight.
Nessie going to jump in for the re-engagement here. They're already in prime position to be able to take over the lead. In fact, they pretty much have it guaranteed already due to how much they're outpacing Gambit right now. But that can be pushed even further with the adequate number of KPs. A down against Zeron. More teammates are going to dive in to finish off that squad, and they'll succeed in doing so. That's going to be T-Rex taking some heat now from Alliance also as a separate fight gets started there. One member of T-Rex going down, trying to third-party Nessie, but instead of being taken down by Alliance here, as we're seeing, they're going to get completely pinched out. There goes T-Rex as both of the remaining squads work together to take them out and try to get the KPs, of course. Now Nessie going to get aggressive against Alliance, try to take them down as quickly as they can here, and they're going to succeed as Nessie takes their 2nd victory in the final.
Well, if there was a match that you wanted to win, it had to be this one. Is Gambit, what we were talking about, knocked out early. Nessie currently in 2nd place, only leading by, or trailing by 3 points, now leading by probably a pretty absurd amount as to how these two have been going back and forth all day. But what a match from Nessie. Cool, calm, collected, and consistent. That's what we're seeing from these guys.
Once again, there should be a very generous amount of KPs going their way there. We only saw a couple and the final circle was starting, but they wiped out one squad for sure. Probably got the credit for another 1 to 2 off of the T-Rex wipe that happened in the middle of that engagement. And then, of course, the eventual elimination of Alliance for another 3. So probably a safe 7 to 8 additional KPs on top of what they had before that final fight began. This is going to be a solid lead being built up for Nessie now. Obviously, we don't have that confirmed just yet because we don't have the scores in front of us, but this is just the stuff that we know for pretty much certainty based off of the scoreline before we went into this game.
Yeah, we're no mathematicians, but, you know, we can do our best.
We're math theorists.
That
means we can be wrong and have no consequences.
Exactly. The life of a critic is pretty easy.
Yeah.
you risk very little. Either way, though, fantastic game there for Nessie, but I think that there's a lot more to talk about here, and it's got to be the top 5 in general, because we saw a lot of squads that we haven't been seeing finish too strong throughout the day, actually finding some consistency here, especially in the likes of Third Impact, who we're seeing Jazaz get burned alive right here. But either way, it was Kick really inside of those last dying moments that was actually able to find a very, very solid finish for their very first time today as well. So it seems that from the start of the day all the way to nearing the end, we've had a lot of storylines change up, and that's all leading up to this next match, John, which is going to be our penultimate one for the day.
It's going to be our ultimate one for the day. In fact, as we're going to be moving into number 8 right after this break, folks. So stick with us here. We'll be coming back in just a moment with more action here for the GLL Masters Spring. And for the last time today, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the GLL Spring Masters. We have one game left today, but as an important note, as you can see at the top left of your screen right now, there's still 8 additional games that will need to be played tomorrow to crown our true champion here at the Euro Finals. Let's take a look at those scores, most notably from Game 7, and see where our current standings are overall here as we get ready to head into the last game and as these teams get prepared to make their last impact today.
Oh, well, Alliance actually tying up Nessie here. This is something that I was not expecting, to be completely honest with you. They have 9 KPs throughout. That's going to be the most KPs inside of match 7, which is actually kind of funny because we've been seeing a lot of really high KP rounds. But coming down to this, looks like 9 points across and able to tie Nessie up. They only got the really solid placement in 6 frags. So
I'm actually really surprised Alliance ended up with as many KPs as they did, considering how passive of a position they assumably had up until that final circle right there, because they were sitting up at trials just poking people with a triple take for half the lobby right there. But yeah, it's now, I mean, we knew this was going to happen. Nessie very much in control of the scoreboard here at 81 points over Gambit. We just didn't know how much of an advantage it was going to be, but that's a pretty big one at 66 to 81, nearly 20-point advantage between Nessie and Gambit. Gambit not even secured in second anymore either, just 3 points behind them now is Avant-Garde at 63.
Yeah, and that's really, really scary as well, because Avant-Garde has been our most lethal squad throughout all of the day right now. But that's the big difference between placements and KPs, third and first place. Nessie having a considerable less amount than obviously those opponents, but still inside of first place. But either way, folks, we're going to get you back into the action. We know that you don't want to hear us talk. Casters, hit the start button. It's already done. We're jumping on board with Nessie to see if they can do it yet again.
And it's so fast you couldn't even see it. Let's get into the action here. Take a look at Nessie and see how their initial drop is going to go. They've had a pretty peaceful time about this for the most part throughout these games. It's mainly been TI, and generally the top right part of the map has been a little bit more chaotic with regards to these early contestants. So now we're going to see anybody try to hot drop this one and get right in the face of their opponents here. Should be a pretty calm first couple minutes as we drop in here. Nessie, once again, some great, more importantly, the consistent placements is what we've been seeing from Nessie. It's a bit of like I said, it was a quiet second place looking at their performance up until that last game right there. Only the 1 win, but they've started to make a lot more noise now by getting not only that second win, but by being a constant threat on the inside of this series to always netting themselves, at least from my remembrance, around the top 5, top 10 positioning.
Ooh, this circle right now, this is going to be quite interesting when it comes down to it. The thing about it is obviously everyone from Skyhook, all of our teams dropping from there, are going to have to rotate out of that area and more than likely deal with the trials players. But moving along from that, Nessie actually drops at the top end of Lava Fissure every single time. So this is probably the most favorable circle for them. So this is going to mean a lot when it comes down to what happens with them up against Gambit as well as Avant-Garde. A lot of these people are going to have to play into what Nessie are setting up.
Once again, cover is going to be at a serious lack here as well when we get into the final circle, because you can see there's not any serious points of interest on the inside of this one, unless we end up going by the way of staging, where obviously things will be a little bit better in that respect. But that'll be something we can figure out in time. There may be an issue of rotates presented to Nessie here if they don't try to move down south for more aggressive positioning immediately, just because of that really open cross between Lava Fisher and the rest of what's more than likely going to be the bulk of the circle by that cutoff on the bottom left part of the green circle. So we'll have to see how Nessie try to control that, because there is going to be a lot of combat going on near staging. So I doubt that Nessie will try to go in and take that unless they believe they can full wipe the teams that are fighting there.
Yeah, and especially with the early reconnaissance as well, I'm pretty sure they've got some pretty solid insight as to how the circle is going to break. And you can see they're already rotating down. That's going to be your blue squad to the top left of that green circle. But we could possibly have some engagements go on here, as well as T-Rex are looking to get into things. We could possibly have TI coming in as well. Third Impact being here is, oh man, this is looking to be. I don't even know.
This is what I was talking about with the rotates, right? These teams are like, okay, we need this now. Like, we cannot wait for this. We have to rotate into these positions before someone else takes it. And that's why there's this mad rush with like 5 different teams trying to take this tiny little settlement over here inside the circle right now, because it's the only legitimate bunker that's going to be presented to any of these teams.
Well, to be completely honest with you, John, I think that we're going to have some really early battles here. And yes, it's already started, in fact. Kearney losing a lot of health, but it's just mostly the shield that will be going by the wayside. So I'll have to pick that back up. And yes, as you said, T-Rex will be able to actually hold on to it for the time being. But how long will they be able to do so? That's the real question. The good news is not only do they have a Gibraltar, but they also have a crypto as well. Excuse me there for just a second. Either way, the beauty of that is having that access to that EMP, which means that anyone on the entry is going to lose half of their shields, and that's more than likely going to trend in their favor if they continue to try and onslaught the building.
Take a look at OCN real quick, recovering from a recent fight that I believe they just won for themselves. They're going to be able to get Danche back up into fighting shape and, more importantly, rejuvenate this team, as they were able to knock out Major Pushers, who is going to be our first one to get knocked out on the inside of this one. OCN are not done with the fight just as of yet. They're taking some heat from a triple take at range right now, and at least in the case of their, he's going to be sitting very, very delicately there. Danche only down a single sliver of health, so need to be very careful about how they proceed here over these next few moments to make sure they can get out of here safely without losing that rank yet again, and more importantly, while still keeping the full 3-player count up and running.
Yeah, and OCN has not had the greatest of finishes today. We've been on board with them a handful of times, but it hasn't been the most consistent showing. Yes, they've had some pretty strong duels and been able to make it out with some KPs, but what's that worth if you're not able to get the solid finish? We'll see if they can possibly change that up, at least for their future, inside of match 8. What is their fate hold? Well, we're going to find out within the next handful of circles. As we have only lost 1 squad so far, everyone's still making their way into this initial circle. We still have some serious outliers, excuse me, as well around a refinery as well as launch site.
So Alliance continuing to pepper in some shots, just like they were doing in the last game as well. It seems to be a common strategy for them. Hakis getting a little bit of damage on a new esports there, and more importantly, just generating that little bit of extra charge on the Evo shield here. It is going to be a potential startup to an engagement, though, as the EMP from someone's crypto works its way out. Definitely dealing some impact onto both of these rosters, but not really much follow-up from that, as it's going to stay pretty passive. Both teams just respecting their current map control.
Well, easy going so far here for these squads, as they've been able to muster some ground control, but doesn't seem to be able to actually push that into anything else. As of right now, Third Impact still lying inside of their building. No real shields on them for the time being. Gambit Esports also here as well, but no one wanting to take the battles, truly. As finally things start to pop off, Gambit works their way outside of their building. Still have some high ground here on this rock face, but they have to worry about another group of people across the way from them on similar ground.
So a lot of teams being very careful with their repositioning here. Definitely not trying to jump into fights if they can avoid it, as there is not a lot of area to work with to begin with here for these teams to play for. That's why, once again, we saw such a mad rush towards this part of the map in the early game. Some of these teams wanting to take that position early on so they don't have to fight for it in a futile bid when we get down to round 4 or 5 on the circle here, as we've already seen multiple teams try to do that. Not even just, today or in this tournament, but like in Apex in general. It usually does not go the way of the attacker. So
no. I feel like that's the biggest thing about Apex, right? Is like the game overall feels like a game where you can get really aggressive and punish people in that matter, but it's almost exactly the opposite. Usually when you're the aggressor, you're on the receiving end and you end up dying just because of the amount of defensive plays that can be made, especially around Gibraltar shields and stuff like that. But Yappers, they're being the big difference here, and that big difference being that they're actually getting good damage off. That's the big problem, is a lot of times when the chase goes on, the other team's able to dip and dash out of the way and try and reassert over the situation, but not in this case. Yappers immediately take down Karama, able to secure the KP as well and start digging through that death box.
I like we talk about how aggression in Apex doesn't usually pan out, and then a team just got aggressive and got a kill. Like
Man,
as if the
way.
universe wants to make us look like idiots. So
that's just how it is, man. That's just how casting goes in general. You're always like, hey, there's something here that they should just never do, and then there's going to be the guy that doesn't, at a moment's notice and just flips everything on its head. But either way, things so far throughout this last match, quite slow when it comes down to it. Yes, we have lost that initial squad, but these teams playing this one very close to the chest, not really trying to re-engage on any opponents or anything like that, or really searching for these KPs. It's mostly just been squads getting the drop on others and are able to at least get some consistent damage off or possibly get a singular member.
Has so many squads condensed in the late circles already here. Only one squad has died, but the map does not look like that with how condensed everything has become before we've even closed in on our second circle here. Obviously, you've got those stragglers still on the outskirts trying to work their way back in. And we're more than likely going to see quite a few fights evolve from this. You can see solo queue goats on the run from Kick right now, but they are running directly into Nessie, I believe, who's sitting directly below them. So they're going to be stuck for a couple moments while they try to figure that one out. We can see another one of our squads potentially running into another by countdown also here, as it's Plushka. I think that's OCM that's going to be involved in that one then, as they try to hold on to their positioning. Or no. Yeah.
Yes? No? Maybe so? Either way, though, looks like it's breaking down around Harvester as of right now. No one truly down, just shots getting sent back and forth. This is looking like it's going to make quite a break here around staging when people actually have to enter this circle. You can see Gambit is set up across from this opposing squad that's actually inside of staging. So this can make it quite awkward for these teams to try and cross through that lower valley inside of that area, because, or just the lower area in general, because of this high positioning here for a multitude of these squads. We also have GYD still up top here inside of Train Yard, currently bearing down on these opposing members. Nothing too much to call back about just yet. Obviously, just trying to hold on to their positioning. No real insight as to the situation. Nox just simply popping some shots at Dell, but that's about it.
Making contact with enemy.
Nessie continuing to wait out, as they do have a pretty powerful position to play off of for the time being. No need for them to get aggressive. And just continue to hold on to the spot, with Mady acting as the call out here in the event someone tries to pinch on them. They know there's squads nearby. In fact, there's one directly below them, and Mady would have been able to see that scan go off a second ago here, but has to be cautious of the solo queue goats who still sit behind them, as well as, I believe it's Kick, that's the purple squad, sitting just past solo queue goats as well there. So need to be cautious of that. They're going to set up a reposition. And in fact, solo queue goats are in the middle of fighting another team already here. It's going to be Ethics that is able to take them down entirely, wipe out the goats yet again, as they'll falter in 17th place. Ethics should have the time they need to revive themselves, but there is still trouble nearby, so they'll need to be ready for that. And in fact, they do seem to be ready. Air already scanning out here, trying to make sure nobody attempts to reignite this fight for a third party.
And Ethics have done such a good job of handling these early skirmishes. It seems to be the latter half of the matches that they're not able to find their consistent mark. So we'll see if that can possibly change up for them, because it truly would bode well for them on the leaderboard. They're able to find these KPs, but again, what's that worth if it's not, translating into a solid placement as well? They'll be able to hold on to Lava Fisher for a little bit while longer now, though. And that's pretty good news. Obviously, a handful of these squads already leaving this area. Let's see how hard this circle is going to hit. Not too hard, obviously, just being on that round 2, but as soon as we jump on board with the Disco Boys, they're starting to dance up once again. They've already lost Krama, but I believe we saw that a little bit earlier on. Arcstar's out now for Sirius as he's trying to slow down this assault from the opposing team inside of this valley.
Sirius still trying to put some pressure on, but he's got to be careful not to overexert himself here. Those low shields could come back to haunt him if he tries to get too aggressive upon that. The wingman not panning out right now. Can't connect the shots, unfortunately, and just has to back away from this at the end of the day. Same for their teammates as they'll continue to wait out time and try to get any damage they can onto the passing players, but Kick has made it past them. Kick a little split up right now, though. Denze and Jaku both in very different positions, as you guys can see on the left side of the screen. Curious if Kick lost their third and are just kind of trying to stay in this game as much as possible, trying to regroup at a later point, which currently seems to be the case here. Jakku still trying to work his way over towards their last remaining teammate, and indeed, they have lost Cybeck. So it's just down to these two here, and Jakku is in a very awkward position trying to work his way back over to their crypto.
Yeah, so many people bearing down on his position. Shots being sent from every single direction as he's trying to make it through for Kick and get a solid placement. But the issue is right now, still 17 squads remaining as we're only about to enter Circle 3. But we still have 50 seconds before even that starts up. So as of right now, it's just very strong positioning being taken up by quite a few of these squads while the others try and scour the land for any sense of cover that they can possibly get or any sense of security at all. Nessie attempting to bust the doors open on this room right now of this purple squad. Graceful throwing some more grenades in and seems to be dealing what they need, but not able to actually deal any damage inside of there. But that's exactly what we'd expect. They just want to try and blow these doors off and make it very difficult for them to try and use these as cover, because that's usually what we're going to see, and that's exactly going to be that. It's going to be the flying duck pattern here for them. As they fly through the air, they'll lose a singular member, but Nessie's down on top of them. Mady already here with the Mastiff, cleans up one, not able to get the second one as his shield is away, but it's not going to matter. The rest of his squad takes down the last remaining member of Ethics, and that's going to be all she wrote on that situation. GYD, though, a whole different story.
Yeah, we're back over a train yard for this fight here. This is a part of the map we've barely even touched so far, but GYD with a great switch up over to the Mastiff there. Cernel with some impact, but unfortunately not going to be enough as he's still taken down by Badoli. I couldn't read that name. Sorry about that. By Badoli, and that's going to bring NCD back into the engagement, allowing them to recover beautifully to work their way back into this fight. Will they be able to make the run, though? That's the problem. There's still so many teams cutting off this rotate, so despite the brilliant efforts from Badoli a few moments ago, it's all going to be for naught, and they'll be brought down to just a single player unless they can get the revives off.
And CMK held up on the other side of the building as well. These members obviously finding some consistency throughout the day. Not mostly inside of the kill department. It's really been the placements for them as they've had really, really solid positioning throughout all of these matches. And this is not going to be any different here. Obviously, have to deal with Kick across the way, but it's not going to be too difficult, especially being able to hold down their own building. But Disco Boys trying to make a play, seemingly attempting to clean up a straggling member of this squad here. The Eva out. They'll be able to down one, but where's the other members at? That's the true question. As we see who they actually end up picking up here, it's going to be Graceful. So that's actually going to be, remember correctly, that's Nessie. So I don't know where JMW and Mayday are, but obviously they're going to be sorely missing their Gibraltar.
This is the problem with those teams that had to commit to a late rotator, couldn't take up position earlier on. They're now just being torn to shreds on the late rotate by the teams that took up those early positions, as we've seen so many teams falter here in just these last few minutes. It's going to continue to be a common trend here as the circle closes in more and more, and the teams that thought they had safe positioning no longer remain in those spots any longer here. Alliance getting aggressive, covering a lot of ground right now. Rift's going to be opened up in a second here by Hawkins just because he's kind of in dangerous territory. He needs to be able to back out quickly in the event he pushes too far forward, but ends up with a great spot. However, no, can't fall back behind the portal in time, goes down, is going to be able to save his own life and actually back through the portal in time. But now here's the problem. You've got a lot of pressure going on to it. Vapes is silenced. He can't even support. If you were going to silence anyone, it would be Vapes you'd want to hit here too. He's got no option to throw down the shield right now. Just has to sit here, wait for the swings, and unfortunately can't even fend that off. Underrated run over Alliance, as they're going to be able to take them out and recover nicely.
And underrated also making a lineup change yet again as well. They went away from the Horizon, picked up the Crypto, but now they're back to the Horizon. So feeling as though that is the utility piece necessary to find a lot of these frags. And speaking of frags, well, T-Rex is about to get fragged out as Kearney's taking so much damage. Deputy's already down. Zerafer trying to hold back as many opponents as possible so they can get on top of this healing process. Usually that one takes a while, but we'll have to see if they can possibly get through this. No longer having a Gibby shield for that situation either. Nessie coming under fire as well, as obviously we saw Graceful get downed earlier on. They're not going to have all of that defensive utility at their disposal either. So a lot of problems for a lot of these top-end squads as of the moment. JMW and Mayday doing their damnness to stay on top of this. Mayday has to make the move, but there's just so many crossfires being held on top of them. At a moment's notice, someone is more than likely going to lose their life. But oh no! They find a gap, and they're actually able to escape what seemed to be the kill box.
There's going to be more pressure coming into the players up on top of this positioning as well. Underrated, using the Death Totem yet again here to dive in once more, allowed them to knock out Roger, taking him down and knocking another player, not only on top of that, adding another kill point to the side of Underrated here, who have to be, kind of plentiful in them now. We've seen one squad wipe already go their way. Possible that multiple others also transpired here, but they've got to get a little cautious here now. Down to the top 10, in fact, it's very quickly evolving, down to a top 9 already, just those couple seconds since I said it. They want to make sure they can play for the placement overall here too, because those are also going to be worth a lot of points.
Yeah, but the biggest issue we've seen from this underrated squad is the lack of that Gibraltar, and it's not necessarily the biggest deal when it comes down to it. The thing is that when it gets down to these very congested circles, having a Gibby shield to be able to not only withstand a defensive bombardment, but also all of the fodder that's going to be coming on to you is a really, really big deal. So as of right now, they're going to be playing for positioning and possibly try and get hold of a building so they have something to work with. Being out in open space is not viable for them in the slightest. As we jump on board with Totem, though, they'll be able to clean up another kill here for themselves and start to get some shields back up and online. And that's going to knock us down into our last 8 squads right before our 5th circle.
Coming down to the wire for these teams here. Another one has been lost recently, putting us into a top 8. Croissant still in the fight as well here. Clone trying to put some pressure onto what I believe is Nessie holding off in that corner, if I'm remembering all the positions correctly here. They know they've got a 2-man squad, somewhere condensed, and I believe the only 2-man squad in the fight right now is Nessie, so they're trying to hide behind that pillar, playing on the circle. Croissant know it, but Croissant also have pressure coming in from the top rafters against them too. And indeed, it is Nessie on the other side of this fight here. They're able to ignore that pressure, sit back and wait out the timer. More importantly than that, survive the closing of the circle without having to reposition again. They're still in this fight, but when it moves another time, they're going to have to run out into the open and find new coverage to work with here. Let's take a look at our team tracker here. Nessie in it with 2. Disco Boys has a single straggler somewhere out. Besides that, Gambit still in the fight here. Reply Totem is as well. So is T-Rex. We've got so many high-profile teams in the fight right now. Gambit, of course, moving in, trying to clean up some of the remaining players on one of our other squads as Dezo gets knocked out most recently.
Underrated coming under fire now from Gambit as an amazing play comes through from Hardeki. Makes the play inside of the train car with the Rift and able to get out all the same. So Gambit with strong positioning yet again. This is one of our most winning squads throughout the day, tied for 2 wins with Nessie. So this is extremely important when it comes down to who is leading at the end of this match and who's leading at the halfway point through our finals. Croissant now coming under fodder once again. They need to get back up on top of these shields. So very pivotal to the moment. But as it looks as of right now, it doesn't seem as though they possibly have batteries to assist. Instead, just meds instead. And that is just so very unfortunate for them right now. Any grenades, anything at all that flies onto them is more than likely going to mean their demise. And in comes the reposition. Khan has been down. Clone's dusted. Robin trying to play for the strongest positioning he possibly can around all of his friends.
He's just running.
Position through the rift and see if he possibly gets chased. Goes for the med instead. Oh yes, the chase comes through with the immediate reposition from the opposing Wraith back through, especially after catching a lot of damage from that Eva.
I don't know if he has time for that med kit to go off right there. Immediately he's going to have to jump down and into the fray. trying to survive, trying to push it that one extra position forward if another squad happens to get wiped out in the process. Reply Totem getting melted here. It's all on to Sharp. He also doesn't have the capability to re-heal right now. Tries to go into the corner, nearly dies to the circle right there, just off of the bounce off the ground, but is able to save himself on just a moment's notice. A battery is still available, so he'll be able to re-shield back up, keeping himself in the fight. But remember, he's the only one up for Reply Totem, and he still has multiple players broiling down on top of him. That first shot might be the end of him, and he goes down, putting us into a top 4 scenario. Over to Horizon now, who is the only player left standing for Underrated, but just picking up another very important KP by knocking out that last remnant from down below. T-Rex is still at full strength. So is Gambit, I believe, up on top. They might actually be down to 2, however. So T-Rex has control over the situation. Just a 3v3. It's just a matter that one of the players is on another team. No way Gambit are going to go for this right now as well. Trying to bring Artico back into the fight so we can contribute the bubbles, but just a little bit too greedy to try and do that. Even that one little peek into the circle costs Hardecki so much on his HP here. They know they're disadvantaged, but they also know that they have the high ground, so they're trying to leverage this to the best of their capability. You can see, though, T-Rex is not giving them anything at all. They're going to have to jump into this. There won't even be a circle anymore in just a second. It's all coming down to this. Horizon getting spotted out and melted by Leogri. The other team needs to jump into the fight now. The trade's going to come in from T-Rex. That takes him down. And as we see the rest of the players bleed out, T-Rex are going to be our winners, I believe.
Yes, I would be inclined to agree with you. So we don't exactly get the winner screen, but obviously the last two remaining members alive being T-Rex. And that's their best finish of the day, John. And what a way to do it as well. It was basically like a Jenga tower right there. Like no one could actually vacate the premises and move around. They're just stacked right on top of each other.
At the end of it, I think it's kind of a planned second place for Gambit. They knew they couldn't really jump on to T-Rex with 3 full players all right next to each other on that second story platform as well. So they more than likely had the info that that one straggler was down below. So that's why Leogri jumps down to the lower level immediately, takes out that player. So they at least get the KP from that one and then take the second place after that. Because unfortunately, they just don't have the capability to fight that. And well, the circle's completely closed at that point. So they're eventually just going to bleed out, as I think we saw happen to the last member of Gambit, basically, since that player didn't actually jump down, wanted to try to play the high ground advantage, and unfortunately just never really got the opportunity because the circle bled them out too quickly.
Yeah, the final circle, and that's a lot of damage. Let's put it that way. I mean, like it's very difficult to try and fight through that when you're basically dying inside of like 4 to 6 shots from the circle. It's just very, very difficult. But either way, great game there from T-Rex. Definitely their best one throughout, obviously because they won, right? But like the biggest thing there being their positioning. This has been T-Rex's best game based off of position, and that was the big thing in stark contrast to what is happening to them prior to this. Although they definitely were not the beacon of hope when it came to who's going to win these finals, because Gambit and Nessie right now are at each other's throats.
Now, Gambit does successfully outpace Nessie. I don't know by how much, as I didn't really catch when Nessie got eliminated in that chaos right there. I know they made it to the top 8, but beyond that, I lost them. Either way, though, we're tallying the points right now. We'll have that information in just a moment for you guys. But more than likely, Gambit outpacing Nessie in that game. The question remaining, though, is it by a margin of 20 points or more? Probably not. So that is more than likely still going to leave Nessie in control of the lead at the end of the day, but definitely not as advantageous as it was before, as that should allow Gambit to slightly close the gap. Possibly a third element getting added into that as well. Remember, we had a couple other teams closing the gap against Gambit, also still in second place. So we could see some other contenders starting to chase Nessie down on the overall scoreboard too. It is a very, very close run here right now in EU. We don't have a secured winner by any stretch of the imagination yet here at our halfway point.
Not at all. I mean, there's probably more than likely still some people on the top end of the lower half that could possibly shoot up into the top 5 at any moment as well. It just depends about the rebound tomorrow, but still a lot of squads still to play through all the rest of the 8 matches that we have. But another squad yet to talk about that we didn't, I don't think that we got to see too much of them inside of this last match, especially Blue, being Avangard. That's somebody that we've had their names in our mouth all day long, but very quiet inside of that last matchup. And that could mean their demise inside of 3rd place.
Yeah, Avangard getting unfortunately crushed, I believe, on as part of the rotation game right there. So many teams in that just because of the way the circle ended up working. You got to give credit to the teams that made the moves first and took up early positioning. It was a big risk because you were potentially risking going down in like 15th to 20th place with probably no KPs on top of that, meaning that the game was basically a non-starter for you. But if you got one of those positions, like we talked about earlier on, that meant a lot for you. I think it was T-Rex that was the team that took one of those positions early on as well, and I made mention of that. So that ended up being the winning factor, at least, or part of it, I should say, for T-Rex there, because they were able to establish that position very early on and then just play it out from that point forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously that last match highlighting what we wanted to see from T-Rex all day long. It was one of the mainstay squads that we've been talking about, and really, I mean, you honestly had me hyped up on them. I was super excited just talking to you back and forth before we ended up getting into the cast today. But I think that the biggest thing right now is a lot of the squads that we assumed would do extremely well from the semifinals actually quite quiet. Alliance isn't having the best game. Third Impact, excuse me, also not having the best of days either.
Yeah, Alliance definitely not able to make the impact that they were inside of the semifinals, comparing them right next to T-Rex in that respect, and quite a few of the other teams we have here, obviously, as well. Just not able to find that consistent top placement. Like I said, the Circle, to be fair, not really being too kind to them in quite a few of these matchups, so quite a few circumstances with that happening. But there's also quite a few rounds where they were in contention. Top 2 finishes there, just unable to close out due to multiple reasons. So we'll hopefully be able to see them go back to the drawing board and fix those issues as they get ready for the second half of these games tomorrow. And then we'll see if they can make the push up, because they're not out of this one. Alliance is still in this fight. We still have the other half of the games, and I believe they're sitting around 7th place right now. Have already had themselves a couple of close games with those 2nd place finishes. So get themselves 2 to 3 wins in the games tomorrow, and they more than likely are going to be in competition, if not very close to the top of that scoreboard also.
Yeah, and there's a couple of hats you can throw inside of that ring. One of them being underrated, which I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a personal fan of. No bias, obviously, no caster bias, but I mean, they have one of the most interesting, interesting ideas when it comes to how they actually play Apex competitively. One of the mainstay things, we've been talking about it throughout the day, is Gibraltar. That is the one guy that you're never going to see taken out of a lineup unless there is a damn good reason why. And for this team, it is all-out aggression. They use the death totem of Revenant off cooldown all the time, as they are just consistently trying to find these KPs and actually able to find some really solid placement with that as well.
There is still that possibility we see the alternate comp show up from Alliance as well. Once again, we got a little bit of info from their coach on that respect. They're not running the Revenant and Octane that they tend to have run in the past here because they're trying to play for placements. Now, I don't think that they personally have succeeded in that goal just as of yet, but in the event they find some consistency and want to get more aggressive, we might see that happen over tomorrow's games. Either way, we have the scores ready, ladies and gentlemen. Let's take a look and see how Game 8 panned out and where we are at the end of Day 1. Here's Game 8 scores. First off here, T-Rex definitely topping it out, not by a massive margin, as both Underrated and Gambit sit very close to them at 15 points, but they still take the cake at 20 overall, tying Underrated's kill total there at 8 for each team. Gambit obviously finishing second, just past Underrated, so that's how those two end up tying.
Okay, before you switch this on me, production, I'm putting it out here. I think Nessie still has first. Let's see. Do they still have first? I want to say they do.
Yeah, they should.
I want to say they do. Yes, they do. By 7 points, Nessie get the victory, or close enough to actually round out the day at the top of the leaderboard. That 7th place finish good enough for first in our eyes, and Gambit still remain in second. But they've shored up that gap pretty damn well. 81 points up against 88, being trailed by Avon 73 for third place.
CMK still holding on due to the victory they found in one of the earlier games as well. Pretty consistent placements beyond that. I mean, you can see like the kill total has been pretty underwhelming for CMK, but despite that, they've been able to make some pretty high placements happen pretty consistently, and that's been allowing them to stay in 5th place. Now, that will more than likely need to be improved upon going into tomorrow's games, but that's just something that they also can go back to the team room with and discuss before they end up getting into the bulk of those matches tomorrow. So Nessie leads the charge currently, Gambit sitting right behind them, as those two have been chasing each other for the majority of today's games. NCD also a contender in that earlier on, but has since fallen off. Still can make the comeback later on though, and Avant-Garde, the other team that sits just close behind Gambit and Nessie, and is still one of our true contenders for first place right now. That could change up the status quo with just a single good game going that team's way.
Yeah, depending how tomorrow goes for a lot of these top end teams, everyone within striking distance, really, when it comes down to it inside of the top 10, because as you and I know, the last time that we casted this all the way down in LATAM, things switched up quite heavily on that second day, and things can get quite drastic when it comes down to Apex Legends.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that is going to do it for day number 1 here. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow as well. We'll be wrapping things up. We'll be starting at the same exact time. It's going to be at 19 CEST for those of you inside of the region, and feel free to convert that for your local time zones. Other than that, though, that is going to do it for myself and Stokes. I hope you've enjoyed the action today, and we'll hopefully catch you tomorrow for more.